Evening. How are you all? Welcome to the workshop. Hope you're all well. Hope you're having a great bank holiday weekend, or Jubilee weekend, should we say. And a massive thank you for coming over and joining us tonight with our special guest Earworm, which we all know and love. So here, oh, wrong one. Hang on, wrong one. I want that one. That's a good start. So here they are. So welcome, Phil. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And
Pleasure.
And the two other reprobates, Terry and Brian.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening,
Glad you could
everybody.
come along.
Thanks.
So,
Cheers, Dave.
so as we all know, special guest Earworm, the night is about Phil. So if you've got questions, for Phil, chuck him in the chat, and he will obviously answer them if he wants to answer them. But knowing Phil, I would imagine he'll be obliging where he can. And obviously, if there's any other questions for anybody else, chuck them in the chat as well. And it's all about having fun. That's what tonight's about. And like I said all along, it's about seeing what Phil's got to say, how he started, what's he's got planned, what's in the future, what's been in the past, things like that. So this is what the special guest Earworm is all about. So I'm not going to be turning nothing special. I'm just going to have a play in the background, turning something similar to this with a piece that I've got on the lathe. So I'm just going to be in the background listening mostly and tinkering. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the lathe. If you've got any questions now, stick them in. Put a cue in before you put your question, so the guys know it's a question, and then hopefully we'll get some deep dirt out of Phil. So we'll see what happens.
Deep
dirt. Right. So I'm going to go over to the lathe, and somebody can read in who's in the chat.
Come on, Brian.
I'll do the
He'll
participants list.
understand you.
I
Everyone
will do
understand
the
you if you could,
participants
anyway.
list. Oh, shut up, Terry. You're such a pain. So in the participants list we have this evening, we have Mr. Barry Chitty, Barry from Wood Creations, Rob from Coppola Woodturning, Dave Oakley, DJ Brinkley, Douglas Mungham, Gary Glass, Robert from Hodgepodge Woodworks, Jennifer from Krafts Creations, John Scarborough, Michael McEwen, Miss T's Woodturning, Paul Houghton Grisby Turner, Robert Dolman, Ruben Woodcraft, Shane Hurst, some dodgy character called skkrafts, I know who he is.
Dodgy.
Steve Hill, Stephen Gordon, Susie the Swiss Woodturner, hi Susie, Terry Bartlett, Todd at Glen Cove Woodworks, Ward Wilson, Wee Val, you never guess that Wee Val's from Scotland, Ward Wilson, William Kenny, Whitey Woodshed, and Woodturnings by Barry, as everybody on the participants list. However, there are 54 people watching. If I haven't called your name right, Terry will help and pick these up.
Oh, we got a question. That first question for Phil. How did you get started, Phil? And what are your future plans? That's your life already.
That's a big question.
Sorry, what was that? How did I get started?
Yeah.
Yep.
That question's like everything. So like last 30 years in one question.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
How did I get started? I was born in Australia and spent first 18 years there. My parents were for a couple of years before they came back, they were in the antique trade, restoring imported English antiques, and doing a lot of work for one dealer who had bought what she thought was a treadle sewing machine in an auction in a job lot. She thought she'd got a treadle sewing machine, and my father said, "Why have you got a lathe?" Bought a lathe. She said, "No, I bought a sewing machine." No, you've got a lathe. Oh, that's no good to me. Anyway, he said, "Well, my boys would like to play on that." And it's only recently that I found out that they were made in the 1870s. A child's cast iron toy treadle lathe that you sat at, and it was fixed tail centre, fixed drive centre. But they cost $8.75 back then, so they were an expensive toy. Anyway, I'm one of three boys. We messed around on that as kids. my youngest brother, trained as a pattern maker, and we came over back to England. And he bought himself a Coronet Elf lathe, and we used to mess around on that. And if we went to a birthday party or something, maybe would disappear into there was a little like shed on the end of the garage where his lathe was, which was always knee deep in shavings because he never cleaned it out. And he'd come out with a bit of fruit or a box or something half an hour later. So that was basically how I started. And then in my late 20s, I took it up as a hobby again because I was between jobs. I was going to go. I had a job in the travel industry, driving coaches or old buses all over Europe. And anyway, I couldn't afford to go to the pub with mates, so I just picked up a lump of wood and threw it in my brother's lathe, and that was me addicted. And 6 years later, I had met my wife and said, "Look, I want to give this a go." Because if I wasn't skiing in the winter, I was at home or back at mum's turning and started doing craft fairs and stuff. And anyway, I got the local tool store, which was Bed's Tool. So if it's a sort of bed saw and tool supply or something. They had a demo by Robert Sorby, and the guy called Tony Walker came and did a demo, and the guy said, "Look, bring some work over and show it to Tony Walker." I did, and I said, "I want to be a professional turner one day." Anyway, 2 years later, I went into the shop and they said, "What are you doing, Phil?" I said, I'm turning full time. "Have you run Tony Walker?" I went, "Who the hell's Tony Walker?" 2 years later, I'd forgotten. Anyway, he was the director of Sorby's, and he said they picked up the phone in the shop, rang him, and said, "I got Phil Irons in the shop. He wants a job." And I'm like, "Well, hang on, I don't want a job. I'm self-employed now." Anyway, long story short, he said, "Come down to the Sandown show at Sandown Racecourse," and I went down, and in those days, Sorby's had 2 reps that covered the whole country, and Tony Walker, and their stands used to be just one long, probably about it'd be 10 meter long, 8 meter long stand. Tony Walker, this is back in the days when you could smoke at shows. He would start at 10 o'clock, and he would exist on a little cupboard beside the lathe with a coffee machine in it and 2 packets of cigarettes, and he'd go through 40 smokes in the day. And about two or three refills of his coffee machine, and just didn't stop. He'd just go from one end of the toolbar to the other. Anyway, I got there, and didn't want to interrupt him, and the other end of the stand was another lathe set up. And so I introduced myself to the reps, and they said, "Oh yeah," and I was stood up by the other lathe, and somebody said, "Can you show me how to use this tool?" Okay, yeah, I forget what it was. Probably a ring tool. Anyway, there was a lump of wood on the lathe. I switched the lathe on. Of course, at a wood show, you switch a lathe on, it's an instant crowd. And after about 20 minutes, Tony came, and he couldn't look over my shoulder. He looked sort of round me. He said, "You've started then, good." And that was my job interview I worked as Sorby's main demonstrator for the next 3 years.
Excellent.
Put about I don't know. I've visited almost every club in the country. Sorby, my very first demo was at the Ely Guild of Woodturners, which was the club that I belonged to. And they were doing horrible chucks called robot chucks back then. I pulled a lump of wood out of the chuck, and it went over my shoulder. And I just carried on. Carried on. At the end of the evening, the rep came up and said, "That was fantastic." I went, "What do you think me throwing lumps of wood all those?" Like, we sold 600 quid worth of tools.
No way.
Okay, right. So this all went back this all went back to Tony, who, yeah, I'm trying. Anyway, there used to be the Woodturning show at the NEC, and this would have been 94. And they had just released the new tool for them. Then it was the RS200 KT multi-tip shear scraper, which is still available, but they call it a hollowing tool now, which is not. So I made up this spiel, and it was like 26 tools in one tool, because it had got a little pick on it, and it was a side scraper, an end scraper, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I sold 200 in a day and a half.
Wow.
Wow.
I went to Tony and I said, they were only 26 pounds something. I mean, they're near nigh on 70 quid now, I think. Went to Tony and said, what do you want me to sell now? And he looked at the reps, and I said, there's no more of those tools left. And he looked at the reps, and they went, yeah, they're gone. And he said, whatever you like, don't care. And then on the Monday or Tuesday, he rang me up and said, how would you like to be Robert Sorby USA? I want you to go and move to the States and become, promote Sorbies in the States, because they had 6 mail order accounts, 6 big shops who did mail order, but they didn't have any the corner shops. So we went, about 9 months later, he took us to Chicago, to where we were going to be based. Went via Utah, because the Utah Symposium was on, and met the gods, Richard Raff and Dale Nish, Mike Mahoney, all those guys. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It all went pear-shaped. And a good job it did, because Tony Walker died. He got I forget what he did, but he died very quickly, within about 3 months. And without him here, I'd have been in round stuff up, above my head. And then my time at Sorby's ceased, because the other director wasn't a fan, and Mark Baker took over from me as the Sorby rep, Sorby demonstrator. So I knew Mark for a long time, and then I hooked up with Brymark, who were bringing in woodcut tools and Vicmark lathes, and they said, would you come and demonstrate for us? So I was their main demonstrator for 3 years again, and then I took over the agency for both woodcut and Vicmark, and did that for Vicmark was for 11 years and 10 for the woodcut stuff. And I was obviously doing craft fairs and stuff at the same time. Well, not while I was doing the Vicmark stuff, because I virtually had to stop turning. So I stopped the Vicmark stuff and woodcut in 2012, and I've just been concentrating on my own turning now. So it wasn't all just demonstrating. The first. Is anybody bored yet?
No, carry on.
The first.
No, carry on, mate.
When I decided to go pro, there's something called the British Craft Trade Fair at Harrogate, and I booked a stand. And one of the things I used to make back then, because I was never I didn't do clocks, I didn't do tile inserts, I didn't do the general craft stuff. Got nothing against people who do, just wasn't me. So I knew I needed something to have at craft fairs that was a little bit different and would sell easily. And so, can these guys see me?
Hang on.
Not
Just
yet.
1 second.
We'll be
Just
able
1 second.
No, but Steve will put you on the main screen.
Okay. So in Richard Raffin's one of his books, he did these caddy spoons, and so I started making them. And at Harrogate, because they're actually made as a pair, so they're made like that, and then cut in half.
Right.
That's a better view. Is that a better view?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut in half, put in a little chuck, scoop that out, and then on a drum sander, actually sand the shape. And the long story short, the buyer for Eddie's tea shops, which is Taylor's of Harrogate, came along and said, "Oh, we've got a coffee shop up at Caddy spoons. Can I have one to show my boss?" So I said, "Yeah." She bought one then, and a couple of weeks later, she said, "Oh, Phil, it's Louise. Can I give you an order?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." She said, "I want 141." So I'm like, "Why one?"
They only come in pairs. Sorry, love.
Yeah. And she said, "Well, that's what the managers of the 5 branches have ordered." And I'm like, "Oh my God, what have I got into here?" Anyway, over the next 6 years, I made 10,000 spoons for them.
Wow, 10,000. Wow.
Gee.
Has someone in the chat got one of your spoons, Phil?
Say again.
Yep, DJ Brinkley just said I got one of Phil's spoons from Wizarding Wood.
Oh,
DJ.
Hi, DJ. Yes, I remember. Yeah, I've probably made, I don't know, I stopped counting after this because I've got invoices for the 10,000, and over 20 years, I must have made almost as many again. So I probably made between 15 and 18,000 of them. Because I still supply a few little independent tea. Stopped supplying tailors 2000 when I took on the lathes. Stopped supplying them, and but there were other people who wanted 50 because tailors would order 200 at a time, and then the first, so she ordered 141. I used every bit of 2x2 in the workshop, and 2 weeks later, she said, "Oh, Phil, we want to put it in the mail order catalogue. Can we have another 200?" So I had to go and buy wood, which hurt. But then about 2 or 3 weeks later, she said, "Oh, we've sold it in the shops. Can we have another 200?" So within about 2.5 months, I made nearly 600 spoons. And I had to find ways of speeding it up. But now they take, well, now a bit slower, but everybody said, "How long does it take to make one?" And I worked it out because they're done it's a process. You turn like the doorknob, and then you turn 100 of those or 110 of those, cut them all in half, and then you do put them in the chuck and hollow the bowl out, and then you've got to put them on the sander and sand, and then you've got to oil them. And anyway, I worked out that it took about 6 minutes to make one. But that was, pretty hard work. Oh,
that's a manky bit of wood.
Where it's going there. And then they because I didn't know anybody at the start, I used to say there were people that had to pay for them before they got them. Everything was pro forma. Excuse me. And occasionally they would forget that I wasn't that registered. They'd send me a check with the order, and so I go, "Ooh, nice." But then I just remembered when we thought we were going to go and live in the States, I rang them up and said, "Look, I won't be able to supply you for a little while because I'm moving to the States, but I'm still going to be turning, probably about 6 months before I'm ready to go." And they said, "I will give you an order before you go." So anyway, I used to do them for £3.50 back then. So this check, they sent an order for 1,000 spoons with a check. And when this thing in the States didn't happen, I rang them up and said, "Look, I wasn't messing around. It's all gone pear-shaped. We're not moving to the States. What do you want me to do?" And they went, "Oh, don't worry. We'll just call them off as we need them." Well, it took about 9 months for them to finish the 1,000 spoons. By that time, the money was long gone. It was a distant memory. So that last
Still had to
200
make
was
them.
very, very difficult to make. Yeah. So anyway.
So Roy the boy has just said he's got one of your books, Phil. He says it's got lots of nice projects in it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. Somebody said to me that it was my autobiography of woodturning, my progression, if you like, from really simple projects through to more complex. And it is still relevant. I looked at it the other day because I had to get somebody wanted a copy, and I went on Amazon and I went to AB Books and bought a couple of copies because they do second-hand ones, and they were pre-signed.
Pre-signed.
I'd signed them for somebody whenever, and so I didn't have to sign them again.
Douglas
I
Williams.
Spelled out the name that I'd signed them to, and
Another name.
Put the other name on, but it was quite comical.
Douglas Mungham says he remembers seeing a photograph of you with a wooden hat that you turned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way back was that?
The Ely Guild, John Ambrose was the guy who set the club up way back when. When I first met him, he said, "You should have a wooden hat." So I made a wooden hat, and it was a very poor facsimile of Johannes Mikkelson's hats. And then 2004, I had him come and teach in my workshop, and he did 3 courses, and I learned how to make them, and then had running courses myself on hat making. So I've got 10 or so wooden hats, but it was, may have been that first one, which was embarrassingly bad, actually. Anyway.
John Scarborough wanted to know what was your first professional commission?
No, Steve.
Yeah.
Lewis says, can you give him a spanner?
Can you give him a spanner?
Can you give Lewis a spanner?
Don't give Lewis a spanner.
Oh, I don't know about
that.
He
says, can you please give me a spanner so I can instill fear into the masses? This might be interesting. So we've got 75 people watching now, guys. Lots of people have come in. Lionel, Keith, Trevor, Scott, AGK, DJ, Aston, Lewis, Douglas, Chrisky Wood Creations, Lewis, Klondike Craftsman. Lots of people have come in and joined us.
Roy's the boy. I'm in the Ely Guild. Okay, cool. Well, it was the first club I joined, and that would have been back in the 80s that I joined the Ely Guild. Probably 88 I joined the Ely Guild. Yeah, it would have been 88 I joined Ely. I don't know whether any of the original... Oh, there is. Yeah, there are a few still, 1 or 2 still there. It's a great club.
The Ely Guild is still going. I'm doing a demo there next year.
Yeah. Oh, the Ely Guild's still going, but I don't know whether some of the original members that were...
Oh, right. The original
one. One or... I think I was there about a year... Oh, not a year ago, but 3 years ago now. Chris... I remember Chris Stott came and they had the Christmas do. Chris Stott came and judged thing, and I came second because that's right. I joined them and they said what, and I'd taken the Pomander that I used to do, and they said, are you going to enter the Christmas competition? I said, what is it? And they handed me a 2-inch cube of Iroko and said, you're going to make something out of that. And I'm like, what the? I'm going to make out of a 2-inch cube of Iroko. And somebody said, I'll make a Pomander. Oh, okay. So I cut this thing up, ended up with a Pomander, like a tulip-shaped Pomander with a little finial lid on it that was 10.5 inches tall out of this 2-inch cube of Iroko. I came second because the guy who won it was a guy called Ray Hopper, who was a lovely, lovely man, mad as a box of frogs. but lovely man who did he put portholes in each of the 5 faces of the cube. Yeah, 5 faces. So all 4, and then on the top as well. And inside was a snowman wearing a top hat and a pile of snowballs on the ground beside him, all without taking it apart, gluing it back together again. So the whole thing was done.
Wow.
That's how crazy Ray was. He won it, and I got second. And I remember Chris asking me how long have I been turning, and I went, about 9 months. And he nearly fell off his chair. But and then the next year I came back because I was on the road then, away for like 9-10 months of the year. Came back and rang the guy Dick Smith, I think it might have been. Rang him and said, "What's the club competition?" And he went, "A 3-inch cube." Oh, God.
No.
So anyway, I thought, well, I'll do the same thing again, and I did another thin stem commander that ended up being 22 inches tall. And I won that year. So
Miss T has said that she started turning about 4 years ago, and yours was the first book she bought.
Thank you.
The Woodturning Bible.
Oh,
and she still dips into it from time to time.
That's embarrassing when it's called the Bible.
Yeah, the Woodturning Bible, that's what it's called.
Right, yeah.
DJ is asking, have you got any advice for a first-time demo, as he's got his first demo in 3 weeks' time?
Advice? Oh,
have fun with it.
Well, the first one I did was, as I said before, was to Ely, and I threw a lump of wood over my shoulder. But just don't worry about the people who are in front of you. They climb into their trousers one leg at a time, just the same as you do. They're nothing. No different to you. Just do what you do and enjoy it. Try not to throw anything at the audience. Inadvertently, I mean, throwing something at them, on purpose.
It's fine.
You get some cheeky bugger in the back row. You're allowed to throw blanks at them, but try not to throw anything inadvertently, and just enjoy it. Just have fun, but don't get worried about people being a lot better than you or whatever. Because I say, they pull their trousers on one leg at a time, just the same as you do.
Most clubs, when you go and do a demo, they're a friendly bunch anyway. They're not they don't want to make you look an idiot. You, like Phil just said, you're going to get the odd one who gives you a bit of hard time, but most of the time they're just for a night away to get from the missus anyway. Half of them.
Probably. Stephen Woodturning said, I think there's money to be made in individual with original pieces rather than the usual and obvious wood turn stuff. But 10,000 spoons, I needed to change my ideas, he says. I don't fancy turning 10,000 spoons. I don't fancy turning 4 spoons, never mind 10,000.
It's good for your technique. I am still discovering quicker ways of doing them. It sounds mad because I used to use a roughing gouge, a parting tool, a bedan, a spindle gouge, a bowl gouge, and a thin parting tool, another one. And I'd use the bedan to turn the ball, because in Raffin's book he had got because he was God, Richard Raffin was God back then, and going through the project of making the spoons, when he came to turning the ball, he'd got a skew in his right hand and a template, which was had been a square with a circle cut out in the middle and then cut in half, so you could hold it on the thing to see how round your ball was. And when I met him, my first demo in Utah, at the Utah Woodturning Symposium, he was there, and this is kind of relevant to throwing things at people. I started my demo, and I was the new kid on the block, and there were 120 people on baseball bleachers in front of me, and I got I've been going for about half an hour, 20 minutes, and I'm going rapping this and rapping that, and suddenly there's people start giggling. I'm like, what, So the instant thing is check your flies. Now they're okay. So I looked up, and there's Richard sitting in the back row, and he was young enough and agile enough then, 20 plus years ago. This was 94 as well. 95, sorry. He climbed up and was in the middle of the back row. And I went, oh, g'day, Richard. Got a couple of questions for you, mate. So you know in the book where you've got that template in one hand and skew in the other, was the lathe switched on? And he went, no. And I'm like, you so-and-so.
You saw it.
Threw a blank at him, which the audience thought was hilarious because I am abusing God, And I said to him, how many have you made? And he went, oh, I made tens of thousands of scoops. And I went, no, mate. How many spoons have you made? And he went, oh, about 600. So by that stage, I'd done 5,000. I said, I knew he was going to be there. So I did a pair of Ziricoti spoons, and which is stunning timber. And I said, yeah, Richard, thanks, mate. That's my 5,000th spoon. Which again got a good giggle from the audience. But it annoyed me that the fact that he put something in the book that he didn't actually do. It's a how-to book, and he put something in that he just didn't do, which was using a template, and because he used I forget, I think he said he didn't with a spindle gouge. He didn't use a skew to turn the ball, and I'm like, why? What's the point? It's a beginner's book. It's a how-to book. So I think we had the conversation years later because I've demonstrated with him, and he actually came. He stayed in this house 11 years ago. Before we actually moved in, he came and taught in the workshop, and we had conversations. And a hell of a nice bloke, but he's a little bit forthright, shall we say?
DJ Brinkley. You remember DJ Brinkley?
Yep.
He said he hasn't got a missus. He's 13 years old.
I know.
Yeah. Steve said, "Get away from the missus." He doesn't have one, Steve.
He's got a very, very supportive mum. He's brilliant.
And I think Mark, the gentleman Woodturner, has just put his link in the chat in case you want to. Anybody wants to see it.
I'm not seeing all this. Where
it's on YouTube chat.
I've got
it's on YouTube chat.
Neil M. Evening all. Sorry, I'm late. Is it the last one?
Next to the last, there is another one. But
okay.
Evening, Neil.
Brian's just put Phil's website in the chat. Anybody wants to go and look at it?
If you go and have a look at that website, guys, if you want to see some nice, some absolutely stunning. It's not nice at all. It's stunning. I have a question for you.
Thank you.
The hollow forms that you do and the colours that you add, are absolutely stunning. What colours do you use? What is the dye or the what do you use to colour the pieces?
Way back when I started colouring, because it was Chris Stock who was colouring wood back then, back in the 80s, and he was using powder dyes. And I met him at a seminar somewhere, and he said, "I'll send you some." And he gave me yogurt tubs of this powdered dye. So I knew it wasn't expensive. You know Chris as well, do you?
No, it's just the way you said it. So I knew it weren't expensive.
Chris gave nothing away. Anyway, he's living in Spain. I think he's still alive. But the trouble with powdered dyes is they can't put a UV inhibitor in them, so stuff faded really badly. And I tried different ways of making them light faster. But then Chestnut started with their coloured dyes. I kind of created demand for contemporary. You could get wood stains, you could get mahogany and ebony and all that light oak and that sort of stuff. But you couldn't get reds, yellows, oranges, blues, greens, and Chestnut. Obviously, saw demand and started producing it. So it was
the powder dyes. They were water based, were they? You mix them with water, or you mix them with?
You can mix them with either. You can mix them with water or spirits.
Okay.
They dry quicker if you use spirits.
Spirits, yeah.
Because you can set light to it and flash the spirits off. But I don't recommend that.
Great demo, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't set off the fire alarm.
I have actually. At one club, I did set off a fire alarm. I remember at Axminster, I know, let's not get too sidetracked, Phil. The dyes, yeah. So Chestnut started producing dyes and got
produced the spirit stains, don't they?
Spirit stains, yeah. Which I used for 20 years, and then I was doing art in action, and there was a guy there who was staining veneers and making photographs. They were pixel photographs. He'd take a photograph of a bowl of fruit and then blow it up so each pixel was 2 by 2, 50 mil by 50 mil, and he'd colour the bit of veneer, the colour the pixel was. And I just got chatting to him. I said, "What stains are you using?" And he said he's using Mylans, which are made in Chester, and they are very light fast, and were £6 a litre, which is about a third of what Chestnut were charging for it. So I swapped over to Mylans. Did I just say?
Myland, you said. You did say Myland.
Swapped over
no,
to
it's not Mylans. What are they called? No, it's not Mylans. I'll think of it.
Well, you're thinking Heather from Spirit Wind, Stone and Bone have joined us.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Heather. Hello.
Hello, Heather.
And the Woodtutor had said, after watching Phil's demo at the Weekender in Spalding, I started using the Chestnut Spirit stains and, of course, Gold Leaf.
Cool. Well, that was a while ago. The Weekender at Spalding.
About 4 years ago, wasn't it? 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh, I thought it was... Oh, I'm thinking one long time ago. It'll come to me. I'll just spit it out in about 10 minutes' time. Yeah, so that's... and I've got a couple of early pieces here that coloured. So this piece, it's 2004, January 2004.
Back to full screen, Steve.
Hold on, get Steve to put you on full screen. Hold on, Phil. Steve.
All right, give us a sec. Calm down.
Hurry up. Come on, get up.
What you playing at? Huh? So that
Woodturning.
Beautiful. It's a piece of figured maple. It's a keeper. And I picked this up at there was a Western Arboretum used to put a show on, and they had 12 wood carvers there, and I saw this guy was carving Thomas the Tank Engine in the end of this log, and he cut a piece out where the seat was going to be, and the whole log was that figured, and it was just going to stand outside. I nearly cried, but he gave me the piece that was the seat, and it was just stunning. The whole piece was just absolutely crazy. The reason I colour wood is to highlight the hidden figure in white woods. So that's its natural colour. So it's a very pale. God, there's a heck of a lag on this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well,
there is a bit,
on YouTube there is, but
yeah.
Takes about 15 seconds to get to YouTube.
So I know I'm going, what the hell's going on there? So that's the only reason I colour wood.
How many coats of lacquer does that have?
Say again.
How many coats of
What
lacquer?
what is the outer finish? Is it lacquer?
Would have been rattle can lacquer, probably chestnut rattle can.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well,
Stephen got. Sorry, Phil. Stephen Gordon has said Morels.
Morels, that's it. Thank you, Morels.
That's it.
Well done, sir. Yeah, Morels.
So how many coats of lacquer would you put over something like that then, Phil?
Back then, probably 6, there were the rattle cans, probably 6 coats to get the right amount of gloss I wanted.
Yeah.
But then it was an expensive way of doing it, the rattle cans. But then I just realised if you put 2 coats of satin lacquer on, so step back a bit. What I would do was put 2 coats of sanding sealer on, but thinned by 50% and denib between each coat. And then 2 coats of satin lacquer, and then 1 coat of gloss over the top, and that was equivalent to 6 coats of gloss.
Oh wow, didn't know that.
Because the satin has got a high solids content in it. That's what makes it satin.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it would build quicker rather than just gloss. So that's what they how I did those. And then pieces like this. There's another piece here that has got those panels aren't inset. That's just where I didn't stain them. So what I would have to do with this, and that's how I discovered the 2 coats of satin first, because I didn't want the panels shiny. I wanted them satin. So I'd spray the whole thing satin, and then I used to hand burnish the whole thing to get the gloss. But then I realized that if I masked off the satin where I'd sprayed satin and just sprayed gloss over the top and then peeled the masking tape off, it was a lot quicker. And then I didn't have to burnish quite as much. But this is a piece of burr ash that I did in June 2005.
So when you put when you say you put 2 coats of satin on, Phil, do you sand in between coats or do you just?
Very just lightly denib, yeah.
What was it, 400 or 600 grit or something?
Yeah, because they used trimite, which is a stearite coated abrasive that doesn't. It's for sanding lacquers, and it creates a powder that's like a lubricant.
Yeah. Right.
That's what the stearite coating is. So yeah, I use that, and I buy. You can buy them in like 50 sheets in a pack. I use 320, 400, and 500 grit for denibbing, and that they're about 25 quid a pack. But you've got to buy, a pack with 50 sheets in it.
Yeah, but 50 sheets is quite a lot of sheets because I suppose you don't use 1 sheet every single time you denib.
No.
So,
but it doesn't go off.
No.
And I use.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it dry, it'll be fine.
Yeah. But now I use. So I was using rattle cans for a long time, and then somebody said, "Why don't you just get a spray gun and spray them normally?" And I went, "Okay," because you can buy 5 litres of lacquer for about 25 quid, and it's a tenner for a can of the same quantity of thinners.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
But then you've got to mix it, and because you've got to thin the lacquer and spray gun and all that sort of stuff. So I did, but I didn't get the results I wanted. And then this guy who turned me on to Morels. I found that they do a waterborne lacquer that is odorless, non-toxic. because I got fed up with the smell of nitrocellulose as well. It just started getting to me, and I now I hate the smell of rattle cans. And but anyway, or nitrocellulose. The morels is you've got to buy it by 5 litre containers, but you don't have to thin it. You just pour it straight in the gun, and it's a waterborne lacquer, not a water-based waterborne lacquer. But it's a bit more difficult to use because it's with nitrocellulose. You use a 0.8mm needle in your spray gun. With this stuff, you need a 1.8 or 2mm needle.
Wow, that's a big
like
needle.
spraying PVA.
That's a big needle, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But it's on the container, all the hazard diamonds, it's just got in capital letters, blank, 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 blank. Doesn't even say don't drink it. Not that I've tried, but and you don't have to use a sealer with it. You just spray your first coat. Your first coat is your sealer. And I only ever put, 3 coats on. But I can get that sort of finish.
Wow.
3 coats.
Wow, that's good. Is it quite durable as well? Is the coat quite durable, Phil, or is it?
It's a commercial lacquer, so yeah. It takes about 2 weeks to cure, and you've got to leave it about, ideally you want to leave it overnight between coats. This has been burnished to get that really high gloss, but it's not far off that sort of gloss. There's another piece here that I haven't burnished, so this piece is straight off the gun.
Wow, that's good.
Beautiful.
So, and these are all urns. So they've got threaded lids.
Very nice.
Do you use a threading machine or do you hand thread it?
I use a Simon Hope threading jig. Yeah. When I started, I was hand chasing them, and it just got really frustrating because if you messed it up, you lost a couple of hours work.
The whole works. Yeah.
So, and it's a vanity thing. I think if I hand chase my thread. Wow, whoopee-doo.
Big deal.
Lucky you.
Medal or chest depended on. I didn't say that. But it takes a lifetime to be able to hand chase, confidently and successfully. So I thought why, and I went and bought a Simon Hope threading rig, and now when he brings out a new version, he just sends me a new version because then he knows that he gets a lot of promotion from me, because they're done, but they're a 2-part. So there's a collar sits in the neck, and then the lid goes on. And I use 12 TPI.
All right.
That's quite fine, isn't it?
Did you? It's just about right.
Yeah.
You don't want it. I've tried. I think he does a 10 TPI, but I just found that a bit too coarse. So yeah, 12.
16 is going to be too fine. Isn't it?
Yeah. But I've got. Oh, he does M33 as well now.
All right.
And I have done a couple of coffee canisters with an M33 thread in them. So it's weird. The mandrel for the M33, it looks like 16 TPI. But it's a twin scroll thread. And it's weird. You think you're looking at what's on the mandrel, but you're getting, which looks like 16 TPI, but you're getting M33 coming out the other end.
Strange.
So, yeah, that's what I thought.
Because I suppose you could thread the ends and then put them straight on to finish them off, couldn't you? On your lathe.
There again.
You could thread your hollow and then put them straight on the lathe to finish off the bottoms.
Yeah, just screw them straight.
You could, yeah.
It's all right as long as I don't mess up.
Let me know how you get on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes for you.
Yeah.
Do you want me to come and be in first slip there, Terry?
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, morels. And I ordered 4 bottles of dye, and that afternoon a van turned up on my door. I'm like, what? Morel's van, because I happened to be on their run when they deliver stuff to. There's a shop just down the road in Bidford that they supply, and they just happened to be on their run, and yeah, I went, what do you have that? What the hell? That's good service. Yeah, well, yeah, old-fashioned company we like to please. Great,
Brilliant.
cool. Thank you very much. So yeah, but it is really good stuff. But the thing I like about it is that you don't have to put it through a strainer. You pour it straight in the gun, and it gives that sort of result and doesn't smell. So it doesn't smell at all.
Obviously quite safe as well, not flammable or anything.
Yeah. I haven't tried drinking it, but it doesn't say, the hazard diamonds don't say don't drink it. So, yeah.
How are you getting on, Steve?
Oh, I'm getting on all right. I'm just listening. I'm just pottering around in the background.
But
That's
you
weird.
should be.
What?
Hey, what did he say?
Watching somebody work at the same time as
Yeah.
You guys are
That's
obviously.
his
So,
excuse.
I'm just on the
What is
Morels.
that timber, Steve? What is that timber? Spalted.
Yeah,
Was it hazel or?
I don't know. I honestly don't know, Phil, because it was a piece that was given to me when I first started turning. But if I show you the bark, if I find a bit of bark,
I was going to say, I'm trying to remember what the bark was like. It looks like spalted birch.
There you go.
Can you see that?
That's not birch. That's not birch. Turn it side. See the sideways.
See the,
Like that?
Turn it through 90 degrees.
could be older.
Between your fingers. Bit
Like
more.
Bit more.
Rotate it between. Could be older. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be older.
Let's see the back. Yeah, could be older.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
Like I say, I was given.
Spalting it. It spalts like birch does or older. So yeah.
That's how it was given to me when I first started turning about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was chucked under the bench, and I just dug it out tonight, really, for tonight. But to be honest, it's a bit
Punky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
It
going to
looks
turn
it when you put it on.
I'm going to turn the lid out of a different piece of wood. So perhaps try and get a bit of darker wood on for the lid.
Chicken.
I'm brave, but I'm not that brave.
Talking about having bits of wood. When I was on the road, we used to go to one of the trips we did. Used to go to Corfu, and I was that crazy keen on wood turning. I bought myself a Carbatech mini lathe, and I took it on the road with me because every 5 days we had to have a non-driving day. And so I've turned in Paris campsite, Barcelona campsite, Corfu, the hotel in Corfu. And anyway, in Corfu Old Town, there were 2 wood turners who just were turning olive wood stuff for the tourist market, and all sorts of little trinkety type stuff. And I went into this one shop and said to the lady, she said, "Can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I want to buy some olive wood." She said, "Oh, that's," and I went, "No, I want some raw wood."
Yeah.
So we don't sell raw wood. Anyway, her husband came out and said, "What's going on?" And she said in Greek, "There's this idiot. He wants to buy wood, but doesn't want to buy the stuff you've turned." Anyway, long story short, I walked out with a carrier bag of bits of wood that were about 1.5 inches, maybe the biggest was 2-inch diameter. Went back to the hotel, pulled the lathe out at the bottom of the bus or the coach, and made some little boxes. And the next day, when we went into town, I went back into the shop, and he was in the shop, and I said, "I just held my hand out with these things in my hand." You could see him in Greek. He's going, "How did you do that?" And
Yeah.
so he said to me, "How did you do that?" To his wife, who spoke very good English. And I said, I explained what the story was. And he said, show me. So I had to go and get this little lathe and took it into the workshop. And I got 3 or 4 tools. I got a cup tool, a spindle gouge, and a parting tool. And that was what I got, And I used to use the cup tool to... the cup tool is a little bit like a closed ring tool. It's like carbide now. The stuff you were using, Steve, that cutter you was using,
Yeah.
was a cup tool, and because of olive, he only turned olive wood, and of course, with that as hard and oily as it is, he just scraped everything. I mean, little bowls, everything was just scraped, and he had a 3-jaw chuck, engineer's chuck. Anyway, he said, looked at this tool. He said, how does that work? And so he put a bit of wood in the chuck, and I started hollowing this thing out, and I'm getting ribbons coming off this olive wood. It's just stunning stuff. And he's drawn it at the floor. He had never seen shavings. He'd only ever seen dust from scraping, and he'd been turning for like 40 years. And so he said, give me a go. So he just approached it like he would a scraper, and he stuffed this cup cutter in, and of course the lump just took off. So there's me been turning for like maximum of 2 years at that time, giving this guy been turning for 40 years a lesson on how to use tools.
Wonderful.
But the funny part of this story is that I was telling somebody, somebody came to me at a show and said, was told a story in Corfu about you, and I'm like, what?
Weren't me.
On holiday.
He's going, weren't me.
Apparently, the guy's son took over, and I made such a big impression on the old man that he, told his son, and his son, any English person went in there, and he'd go, "Do you know Phil Irons?" And I'm like, anyway, this guy said, yeah, his son now tells that story about how you showed his dad how to use a cup tool to anybody, any English. I found a piece of that olive wood the other day. I've still got one piece of that olive wood left, and that's 30. Like we're 90. When did I pull the pin? 93. No, 92. I would probably pick that up because I did another year, but didn't do that. Didn't get out to Corfu again. But yeah, and then I was in Lucerne Coach Park, and I heard a chainsaw go, several chainsaws going. So I wandered up the other end of the coach park, and they were taking down a load of old silver birch, and these things were covered in burrs. And I stood there watching, and this guy in a suit was stood, not far away from me watching. And he turned around and he started talking to me, and I said, "Sorry, I don't speak Swiss German." And he said, "You're English?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you interested? Why are you so interested?" And I said, "I'm a wood turner." He said, "Oh, do you want some of the wood?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Fill up the coach.
And he just whistled to one of the guys, grabbed his saw, and started hacking these birds off this. And I'm like, "What the heck?" And he said, "I'm their boss." But he wasn't worried about his suit or anything. And I said, "Well, what about?" He said, "I've only just recently become their boss." He said, "I miss being on the saw." Anyway, I filled one of the compartments in the coach, like it was a meter. They were probably a meter cube. Filled it with all these birds, all these
silver birch
birds. Yeah. So I was crazy keen amateur hobby. I probably drove a lot of people mad, but we went. I had a Kiwi girlfriend at the time. Went to New Zealand for when this was I wasn't a Gulf War. Anyway, went to New Zealand in the off season, and we went down to Rotorua to buy a car because we were there for 6 weeks. And there was a guy, was a guy called Rick Taylor, a wood turner, who had a workshop at the exit of the hot springs in Rotorua, which everybody goes to Rotorua to see the hot springs. Anyway, I went in. My girlfriend introduced me, and I spent a day and a half in this guy's workshop. And so when I went pro, people would come and say, "Oh, I've met the guy in New Zealand who knows you. He said he taught you everything you know." And this guy, Rick Taylor, he'd say, people would go in and say, "Do you know Phil Irons?" And he'd go, "Yeah, well, I taught him everything he knows." A day and a half. Anyway, 2015, I got invited out to New Zealand for their symposium. And my wife and I went out 3 weeks beforehand and did a tiki tour of New Zealand. And our first stop, he had moved to the north of the North Island. And our first night was about 25 minutes from where his new workshop was. So I negotiated a couple of hours off and jumped in the car and went down. I rang to check he was going to be there. Didn't, got the guy at the B&B to not tell him who I was. Walked in the shop and Sue said, "Oh, it's you, Phil," because they had come here and stayed with us because he was over here promoting woodcut and Anyway, I said, "Where is he?" He's out the back. He's on the phone to somebody. So I walked out the back, and he went, "I'll ring you back." What are you doing here? And I said, "Mate, I've come from a second lesson."
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, and I only had a couple of hours before I had to get back, but that was great to catch up with Rick.
Excellent.
But the whole woodturning, when you get to a certain point, woodturning is a very, very small worldwide family, or it's a big family but very close knit. And like the guys who, when I started, the guys who were my idols are now my equal. I wouldn't say some of them, I wouldn't be big enough to stand in their shadow, but I mean, Dave Ellsworth is, he's God. But John Jordan, I can pick up the phone and just have a chinwag with John, and who's got a wicked sense of humour, and it's a very it's a great family to be in. I'm very privileged that my passion is my profession. My profession is my passion.
Yep.
So it's I am very lucky to do. Just wondering what Steve's doing. Very lucky to do what I do, and I have a very supportive wife. Great stories Phil could listen on like a couple of hours ahead here. Okay.
Gary Glass off the bed.
Gary, yeah.
Where's Gary?
Gary's a Scotsman. But he's
got an early start.
Couple of hours.
He works in Dubai or somewhere, does he not?
Oh, right. Well, thanks, Gary. If you're still there.
JP Woodwork has joined us. Hi, JP.
Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
So what are you making, Steve?
Well, I'm just getting, this is going to be a lid.
Tall lid.
Oh, a big lid.
Ha. One born every minute.
Which
overhead camera, Steve. Overhead camera.
Sorry. Just trying to get the rough size for the...
Things are bad. I've had to go and raid the fridge.
Are you not reading out the questions tonight? Somebody.
Well, we are, but we can't see the questions. Not many questions there. Okay.
What would you like to ask, Susie?
Susie said, "Phil, your lovely display shelves. How are the shelves attached to the upright pole?"
The display shelves on your website, I think she's talking about.
Okay. They have so the shape of them is like a kind of kidney shaped, and they just have a cutout in the end, and they just slot into the onto the post. So there's if you say like Steve's doing with the parting tool, now, or B-Dan, whatever he's using, I made that gap the same width as the width of the gap is the same as the thickness of the plywood shelves.
All right.
So they just slot in.
Yeah. Hodgepodge Woodwork wants to know, do you have any plans to go to the USA symposium coming up?
I was
AWGB.
thinking about going to this one. It's this month now in where is it? Chattanooga. But I'm going to go to the one in Louisville next year.
Right.
So,
Brian for the boys joined us. Hi, Brian.
Heather wants to know, how did you become a professional wood turner? I think you may have answered that, but she might not have been here.
Just decided to do it. And was lucky that I got picked up by Sorby's as their main demonstrator for 3 years. And so I think in those, about half my income was derived from working for demoing for Sorby's. In my first year, I think I earned $8,000 in my first year just working for Sorby's, just doing demos and shows. But put about 20,000 miles on the car. But
which cost you $7,000.
A lot of agents have joined us. Good evening.
94, it wasn't too bad. So, but I just with the support of my wife, because she loved what I did, and she just said, yeah, go for it. So I did, and I've been very lucky ever since. So, well, mostly.
I've asked my wife if she wants to go to Woodturning. She said no. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's funny. So did mine.
Yeah.
I think most women, they don't mind you doing it. I just don't want to do it.
It was a bit different back then because it was there wasn't the internet and there wasn't all that sort of stuff. So was it easier? I don't know. It wasn't. You had to do your kind of. I mean, I thought of my spoons as kind of my apprenticeship in turning. I'm not a Gary Rance or a Richard Finley or Steve Jones or the Yorkshire wood turner. I can't remember his name. I'm not a production spindle turner. I mean, those guys make good livings. Gary only works. I can't remember Tom. Roy the boy. Yeah. It may have been Olive Wood. I mean, I'm going back 30 years, mate. It was 93, 94, 93. So it was just in. Somebody told me the other day that it is still there, run by his son, so it could well be Olive Wood turning. Yeah, Olive Wood.
Roy could probably ask him, say, "Do you know Phil?"
Yeah.
Douglas Mungham says, "Phil, was there anything that you would change?"
Price of the spoons.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that it was a mistake stopping turning and taking on the Vicmark dealership, or in being the importer for Vicmark. Just in terms of where I would be as a professional turner, because I think at the age of 62, I'm just getting into my stride now. But not much. No, not much at all. The spoons, yes, were hard work. Some of especially the last 200 when the $3,500 check was long gone. But no, yeah, not much.
That's where it is.
Yeah.
What was your plans when you were at school? What you were going to do? What you were going to be when you grew up? Until you bought, or not you bought.
Present like mine, didn't have any.
Bought a treadle lathe by accident. What was your original plan?
Because I've had, when we first came back from Australia, I worked on my father's cousin. It's a bit complicated. We lived here from 69 to 72. And we went back to Australia in 72 and came back in 77. I was 18 the day before we left. And I got a job on the farm as carpenter's mate. but was more interested in driving the forklift than I was fixing
Yeah, I bet you were.
the sheds and all that sort of stuff and all that. So I got the boot from that. I then I did boat building, tree surgery, worked in as a bike shop mechanic, then became the manager, and then I went repping for a wholesaler in Birmingham. Then joined Muddy Fox back in the 80s, who was the mountain bike people then. So I've done all sorts of different things, and did 6 years on the road driving. Started off driving old double-decker buses, converted to bunks, kitchen and that downstairs, and bunks upstairs, all over Europe, from Galway to Istanbul, from Seville to North Cape, for 6 years, and so I got paid to play for 6 years. So yeah, I had no idea of what I really wanted to do, and then it just fell from one thing to another, and then discovered turning, and I've been at it for 28 years now. So I think I've
and it still addicts you, doesn't it? Even though.
Oh yeah. I've got more wood than I'll ever be able to turn in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I still get more.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm going to pick up a loaded monkey puzzle that I had half the tree. It must be pre-COVID, and the lady. It was a tree that they had to take down in their garden, and they stored it in their carport. So it's dry, but it hasn't rotted at all, and it's got some phenomenal colouring in it. Here, I've got a piece here.
Full screen, Steve.
So there's that piece. I mean, it's got stunning colour in it.
Oh yeah.
That blue, is that the natural colour of the wood, or is that something you've added to it?
I've stitched it.
Oh, I see.
Stitched.
Yeah. It's holographic flake in 2-part epoxy.
Nice.
All right.
So I'm going to pick up another van load of that tomorrow. And it's got to be 3.5 foot diameter. This is the bottom part of the tree.
Wow.
That's a big piece.
And she has contacted the local woodturning club and said, anybody's welcome to it for nothing. And the club, they've turned up and they've gone, it's a bit big. So
Phil,
she's asked me if I will.
Phil stands there going, I'll sort it for you, love.
Well, it's there was, from memory, there's still quite a lot of it left. There's about, I think there's 2 6-foot lengths left.
That's a lot of wood.
It's as dry as a bone, but yeah, it is a lot of wood. Which is why they're that sort of size, But because if you want it to sport to get the colouring in it, but you leave it a little bit too long outside and it starts to rot and you get patches of rot in it.
Yeah, that's what's happened with this bit. It's rotting on the inside, or starting to go on the inside.
Love Angel's saying hello, Terry.
I love Angel.
Hello, Donna.
She's been on for ages. How you doing?
Put us back in the background there, Steve, because we can see your back at the moment. They all want to see it fly off of there.
Are we doing a thumbnail here, Steve?
Hello, Chris. Chris Bailey.
I'm going to do all that at one piece if that's all right.
Oh,
yeah,
one piece thumbnail.
Do it with the scooches with them, mate.
Yeah, Chris is mowing the yard. Well, listening to your stories. That's good. My wife just walked past my window. Where's she's going?
I thought she's
leaving you, Brian. She's leaving you.
She's going down the workshop to see what new tools you just bought.
That's all right. The shed's locked. And she's no suitcase, unfortunately.
She's obviously out of earshot.
Yeah, she is. Because, trust me, she is out of earshot. So what's the next?
I've just been really lucky with what I do, and as I say, the guys who are my idols now, I can pick up the phone and just say, have a chat with them. It's I'm very privileged. That's how I see it, anyway.
So what's
you
the?
still do demonstrations?
No, I've decided I'm not going to do any more in-person demos.
Because that takes a lot of time, doesn't it?
It does.
Travel.
And I'm getting too old to be carting lathes around because I'm 6'7" tall, so I haven't found a club lathe that I can work on comfortably. So I take my own. I've got a VL 100, fantastic little lathe, and I can do everything I want to do for a demo. I mean, it'll swing a 9-inch piece of wood, which is heaps big enough for a demo.
Mm-hmm.
But it weighs 60 kilos. And I'm getting too old to be lugging stuff like that around, and so I've just decided I'm not going to do any more. I've said that now, but and the problem is clubs don't like paying proper money. Because they don't, I don't know whether they do or they don't realise that it's 2 days out of your week, because it takes a day to get ready, to get everything sorted and loaded up in the van, and then you do an evening demo. I mean, I did limit it to an hour and a half distance from my house, because you're getting back at
midnight, 3 in the morning.
I never did them. You could do, but anyway, you're getting back at midnight and you're just knackered the next day, and you've still got to unpack and sort everything out. So, and you're doing it for a couple $100 quid, £250, which is about the maximum clubs want to pay. So, I'm generalising a hell of a lot here, and I'm sounding ungrateful, but I don't mean to be, but I've done 25-30 years of demoing.
Yeah.
The other thing is let other people go. But
are you doing IRD stuff?
Yeah. I'm doing IRDs, and I'm going to be doing the IRDs that I have done. I'm going to be redoing as kind of how-tos without the projects that I've done. I'm going to do as like you would have done a DVD or a VHS tape way back when. So, and I have them on the website where you can for $10 you can watch for up to 30 days you can watch the demos. But I just want to tidy them up and do them again, because there's a lot of chit chat and stuff in there that isn't really relevant to people watching them. But yeah, I'm doing IRDs. I did one last month for the AOW and I had 502 people watch it.
Very good.
300 and just under 300 watched it live, and the other 200 watched the recording.
Wow.
And I was part of the organising team that did Woodturners Worldwide Online Symposium back in January, which was good. We had 1,300 people bought tickets for that, and there's plans to do another one. And that's the way it's going to go, because
way forward, isn't it?
The beauty of, like what Steve's doing now, everybody's got a bird's eye view of what he's doing. Whereas at a live event, unless you've got a really good camera operator, people aren't going to see what you want them to see. Before, it's only the person in the front row who gets a view of it when you do it in person. But now, I've got my setup is like 4 cameras, so and they're good quality cameras. So even when you zoom right in,
no quality loss.
You're getting really good quality. Yeah. It's down to zoom mainly, how good the quality of the picture is.
Yep. Steve Gordon's asking, are you still teaching?
A little bit, not as much. Well, COVID kind of put a lid on that. I did put a lid on it, but I've got so much. I spent for 19 years up until COVID or just before COVID, I used to go to Germany once a year to teach at a school there. And I loved it. It was exhausting because I'd do 3 2-day courses with 10 people on each course. But the setup that is there, it was everybody. Well, we're all big Mark lathes, no older than 2 years. Everybody had identical tools. We'd go 2 days beforehand to prep the wood, sort the tools out. Because you've got 10 people, that's an awful lot of tools you've got to prep. And a lot of wood. I mean, I used to cut, using fresh cut wood or not fresh cut, but cutting it from the logs. I'd cut 70 blanks, and sort of 6x6 blanks, 70 of them, because you needed a few spares. But I loved it. I absolutely thrived on it. But it's the same. It was exhausting, especially as you got older, and the guy who owns the place, Martin, is 6 months older than me, and he, in the end, he just said, "Phil, this is too much work." It takes a week to get the workshop ready for you. It wasn't just me; it was me, Ben Lucas, and Hans Weisslog, who taught for him. And Glenn used to ship pallets of bowl blanks over there. But anyway, Martin said, "Look, I'm now a grandfather. It's too much work." And he has got into doing corporate days for big companies. So he'll have 15 beginners and they'll just do something like the handle on a corkscrew or a little candle holder. And half of it was already done because it had all been prepped beforehand. But he got into that market. So he could charge the same as he was, well, not quite as much as he was charging for my courses, but for a lot less work. Because that's what he was set up for, and so that it got knocked on. It was a really sad day when he did, because 19 years is a long time, and we were like brothers. And I introduced him. Well, he'd asked me who to get, because there's a whole heap of people have been through there as teachers, and I outlasted everybody. God knows why. But got Glenn in there. He had quite a few German turners, but his methods were I would demonstrate for like a minute, and then everybody go to their lathe and they did what I had showed them. And there was a bell, and when they were ready, you rang the bell. So they'd come back to the lathe, and if that didn't work, behind me was the master switch that only switched the lathes off. So all the lights would stay on, but you just went ding, and all the lathes go, and they go, "Oh, but I'm wrong." So engrossed in what they were doing, and I've made lifelong friends doing that. There was one guy who was an air traffic controller, who came 6 times over the 19 years. He just used it as a
holiday,
chilled out.
Stress reliever. Yeah, and there was a professional turner, Rolf, and his wife came 4 times, and it was like his holiday. He'd come and do a course with me. And one year he wasn't well enough to come, and his wife, what was her name? Can't remember. Annie. And every time they came, she'd bring me a present. I gave her some chocolates or a bottle of wine or something. And then when the year he couldn't come because he just had open heart surgery, she was in tears that he wasn't there. And it was just like a big family. It was fabulous place.
Terry and I are having a holiday this year, aren't we, Terry?
Yes, we're off to Glen Lucas.
We're going to see your friend
4
Glen
days.
Lucas for 4 days.
Well, his new studio is modelled on the one in Germany.
Yeah,
it's just down the road from Brian. Well, Dublin.
Not that far from me.
So we're flying over.
I'm in the north of Ireland. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's confusing. Isn't it? Scotsman in Ireland.
Steve, Roy the boy's asking you, what kind of tape is that?
That's blue masking tape, painter's tape.
Yeah.
Painter's tape, yeah.
Edge lock, look, advanced edge lock.
Yeah, so Pete Twisted Trees and me and Brian are going to Glenlugus for a week. Well, 4 days. A week's holiday.
Yeah, it's
Bit of fun.
4 days for
Yeah.
4 days summer holidays basically.
Take the mick out of him, really. That's what we're going to do.
Should be good fun.
When are you going to finish the finial then, Steve?
That's it, mate. It's the best it's getting. It's the best it's getting.
Ooh.
I hate finials.
Oh, you need friends like you.
They are very tricky things to do, Steve. Yeah.
I hate 'em.
I mean, this one on this piece, that piece of you is not quite right. No, you can't see it.
Hang on.
Steve,
Hang
I'm
on,
changing it.
calm down.
what up, Steve? What up,
Calm
Steve?
down, calm down.
And he dropped it.
Joldy. Okay, there you go.
That's still not quite right.
Yeah, that's a bit too fancy for me.
The proportions aren't right. I mean, if you want to see a finial, Cindy Drosler's the finial queen.
Yeah, definitely.
You know.
Jeez.
Yeah, but that, yeah, it's not bad in the I mean, you don't want it to detract from the piece or be too dominate. So, but I mean, how often do you do finials, Steve?
That's about the third one I've ever done.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I've done thousands of forms, but probably, I don't know, hundreds of finials in 20 odd years. So it's like anything. It's just practice. So yeah, something I don't know whether anybody's seen years ago.
Hang on. Are you showing a piece?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I was approached by a TV production company to do a salvage hunters classic cars.
Oh, salvage hunters, yeah.
To do a well, it's the classic cars rather than just salvage hunters. To do a gear knob for a 74 Alpha Spider. Wow. And the guy, they came. I didn't meet the salvage hunters guy. I can't remember his name. But Paul Cowman is the car guy.
He's the car guy.
He came here, and they were here for about 3 days filming. And anyway, I think you get about 10 minutes of you, rather than it's just we get this done and it's over and done with. They actually go through the whole thing with you, and it's every time they re-show it, because it's all over the world. I get an order for a gear knob.
Wow.
And the latest one I've done is for a
Sunbeam Alpine.
Sunbeam Alpine.
Yeah.
Iconic.
It's a blast from the past, too.
I used to have a Sunbeam Rapier.
I had my first car was a Series 5 Sunbeam Alpine. Yeah, Sunbeam Alpine Series 5 GT. I paid 90 quid for. I was 24.
A gear knob.
I had the Rapier.
So it's and that so the what I did for them was it was a burr elm knob with again the insert in it, and all the little voids, and the shift pattern was done in pewter. So I've done 3 of those now. 2. One for them, and that car went to Spain. I'm doing one for a guy in California, and there was another lady in Dallas who had the same car, and she had the other half of the piece of wood that I cut the knob out of. But the problem with that is that the shift pattern has to be laser etched, and the people I get to do it are really busy. And it takes them forever to do, because I only want 1 or 2, so it's a real pain in the neck for them to do a couple for me. So I've just splashed out on a new toy.
Laser engraver.
Yeah. You won't regret it. You won't regret it, mate.
Yeah,
I have one as well.
it's the I've got the laser pecker.
Yeah.
On the end, goes on tailstock.
Well, you can mount it on your tailstock.
Is that the one you put on your tailstock?
You can. It has a little stand as well. It has a little tripod or
Yeah. No,
if you watch,
not on the lathe, but that's a cool bit of kit, you know.
Yep.
Um,
you watch the zombie woodturner, he uses his. He made a little mount for his tailstock. He just mounts it in it and burns it on the lathe.
oh right, zombie woodturner.
Yep.
That's a great recommendation, isn't it?
Zed.
If you like fire,
If
you like fire, Zed is your man.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's as mad as a box of frogs.
I'm a greenhorn when it comes to use. I did go to Make Essential the last, not this one, the one that was previous to this one. I was working, but yeah, that was a real education for me.
Yeah, I know you was there because my wife was the mad person who came to you and said, "Can I have some of them shavings on the floor?"
Okay, because that's right. She said, "Oh, my husband can't make them."
That's the one, yeah.
That's it.
Sorry, mate. I just thought I'd get that in
That's
before
fine.
the other two did.
That's fine. No, I put some in resin.
Oh, okay.
Don't mention
my
it.
shavings in resin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so as you can say,
Okay.
guess what? Phil earns shavings.
Well, they were big chunky shavings.
Yeah, I was having a huge
the
play.
£10
The guys on the AWGB stand were not happy.
No, you were
because
just
I was
showering
buying
them.
over the barrier. Yeah, that was another chapter, becoming president of the AWGB. Oh, yeah. So, which was really, when I went pro, we moved to Warwickshire. Not because I went pro, but my first workshop was in Leamington Town Centre, upstairs above somebody's office, but opposite a pattern maker's workshop.
Blimey.
And I went across the pattern shop and introduced myself, and they said, first thing I said was, "Do you know Ray Key?" I went, "I know of him, you know, but I haven't met him yet." He said, "Oh, he did his apprenticeship here in this workshop." So then we bought a house because we were in hospital accommodation because my wife's a doctor, 6 miles from Ray Key. And then went to Finland with Ray. We became pretty good friends. And there's lots of footsteps that I followed of his. One was when he died. They asked me if I'd become president because he was president. And then this gallery that I've just got into, I'm the first woodturner they've had in there since Ray died. So there's just a whole heap of what's the word I'm looking for? Synchronicity with Ray, and he's actually in one of my urns,
Wow.
which a burr elm urn that was kind of his shape, because he used to do vessels that were that's his shape, but the tops were flatter with a tiny little rim on them. Anyway, when at this funeral, I said to his son, because he was a cremation, I said, "What are you going to do with your dad's ashes?" He said, "Well, Mum wants to keep them." So I said, "Okay, well, I'd like to provide the urn," and it was a really nice piece of burr elm. And when I took it to Liz and gave it to her, she said, "Oh, Phil, that's beautiful." She said, "I'll put him in the workshop. He'll be happy in there." So,
did you find it an honour, Phil, to do that?
Yeah, I'm welling up now just thinking about it. It's a privilege, you know.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just your appreciation for all the knowledge you passed on through the years as well.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, he was Woodturning UK. I mean, he set up the AWGB with a few other guys, Red Sherwin, Mike Scott. Come on, brain. He was kind of the last of the generation. Bert Marsh. Oh God, you got Ray and Bert together. It was carnage. They were lethal, those two together. Ray used to say the only reason Bert lived in Brighton was the train didn't go any further.
He couldn't get left on the train.
Couldn't miss his station,
Yeah.
because they do Chelsea Crafts Fair together, and for about, I don't know how many years, 15 years or something, and they'd go out afterwards and get on the Terps, and Liz would drive Ray home, and Bert would get on the train, and he was that well known that the guards would come and get him off the train, But a lovely, lovely, lovely man. Bert was a gentleman in all senses of the word. They both were, and it's really sad that that neither of them are here.
Douglas is asking a question, Phil.
Yep.
Douglas Mullen. Question, Phil. Do you have a deep hollowing jig?
The hollowing tools I use, the Woodcut Pro Form, and I've been using them since year dot. I do have a hollowing rig. It's not an elbow. It's how do I shorten this story? When the Pro Form first came out, the handles for them were 1 meter long, and then you had the tools about 300 mil long. But and I've got 2 of those original handles. Now, if you put that long handle in a rectangular tube that is about 400 mil long, so the handle is it's a tube. Let's call it a 2x1 rectangular tube. The handle is pushed across to one side of that rectangle. So you've got a meter long handle with a 400 mil square on a rectangle on top of it. That goes into a gate. So you've got two bars. So it's like a letterbox that you put that rectangle into, and then the handle is rested on the tool rest. So it takes all the strain out of turning, out of hollowing, and it means I can empty. So one of these pieces, the piece I just showed you earlier with the writing on the bottom, I can empty one of those in about 10 minutes.
Wow.
And without physically damaging myself, because before I started using that, I did it freehand, and I gave myself such bad tennis elbow I thought I was going to have to give up turning. Found this rig. I mean, because they're 20 years old. It was a guy called Dave Reeks who used to promote them, and a guy called Tony Mance who made them. Tony rang when I dug it out and went, geez, I've forgotten I got this. Rang up to see if he was still making them, and he's in his 80s and not a well man. But that's what I use, because it's on. So the same section bar is, it's got 2 columns that stand up that are nuts, threaded and nuts, so you can adjust the gap for the letterbox, if you like. And it just has a bar that goes across on top of the lathe bed, and just a kip handle with a disc underneath to tighten it up. So it's very easy to mount and dismount from the lathe. It's just one kip handle to slide it off. Whereas I've got the Vicmark hollowing rigs, which are the elbow tools. But they're mounted on a column with bearings in each joint, and they're very smooth and they're good, but they're a nightmare to store. Because they just get in the way all the time. And when you take it out to clear out the shavings, these things were that smooth that the thing would just swing round and whack you in the back of the head when you're looking in the because the column was mounted in great big bearings, so the whole column rotated, rather than like Simon's, which is on a nylon bush, which I found I didn't particularly like. But so I've got 2 or 3 of those, the Vicmark ones. The hollowing tools I use, it's either John Jordan's scraper tips, his tools, or the woodcut. They're the only hollowing tools I use. Once they're the only hollowing tools I've got 3 Rolly Monroe tools. I've tried them all. because hollow forms are my thing, and I've been doing them for 30 years. But the tools I know work for me are the woodcut tools and the John Jordan's tools, which are, John's tools, they're the best scraper type hollowing tool you can get, and he does them in different sizes. And his arm brace was what cured my tennis elbow, because you lay your arm on top of the tool rather than pulling it into your side, and it's not a pistol grip, where the Stewart system is a pistol grip, and you grip it. You're creating a fist, which is not doing your elbow a lot of good. So yeah, long answer to a short question. It's kind of me.
Oh, very good answer, I have to say. It's got a bit quiet. It's got a bit quiet in the chat now.
Say again.
It's gone quiet in the chat. They're all looking at Steve's work and saying how nice it is.
Watching Steve now.
Donna loves it especially.
I'm looking at trying to make a jig. Yeah, I'm looking at getting these ones made because it is so simple.
Robert saw we do a jig, didn't they? You got one, Brian. Hollowing jig.
Yeah, the Steady Hollow, Robert Sorby Steady Hollow Pro or something it's called now. Hollow Steady Pro or something.
Is that the thing with the rollers?
Yeah. What's the treat? Yep.
Is it?
What's the treat? Yep, I use it all the time.
Okay. And what tool do you use with
it? I use the Simon Hope 6mm cup carbide cutter, or the 10mm, and also use the Sorby Hollow sovereign system.
Right. Okay.
The trick with that is you're actually lifting a tool up rather than trying to push it down.
Yeah, I get the jig thing, but their hollowing tool, I think it doesn't even make a good boat anchor.
No, it's not. It's not a great. It's not a great tool. The big knurled knob on the end gets in the way, and it's not good. The Simon Hope one's better.
Horrible thing. And I feel I'm qualified to be able to criticize Sorby's. But it doesn't even make a good anchor. So, and the trouble, let me quantify that. If you've spent an awful lot of money on a tool like that is difficult to use, and you're going to break stuff because with all those knurled bits, you're going to catch the openings and all that sort of stuff, it's going to put you off. Where a tool like, okay, you're going to spend a lot more money. Well, probably not that much more money to get a tool that works, like the Woodcut Proform, and enjoy your turning, enjoy your hollowing, because the tool works. There's like nearly 40 years R&D gone into those tools, where I know that with Sorby's, they'll just come up with an idea for a tool and make it without any R&D or stuff, because they shut up, Lons, you're gonna
get
a shoulder now.
Yeah,
you know what you mean though, Phil.
It's not a great tool, it isn't.
They have to have the latest gizmo gadget for you guys. I haven't got one of those on my shelf,
but are they aim more for the? Is it aim more at the hobby turn rather than the professional?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if nobody would make a living if they just relied on on professional turners. Nope. It is totally, and it's. I mean, when I was selling stuff, I had for instance, I was doing the Glasgow show, and a guy came along and he said, "Oh, what have you got new?" And I went, "Oh, I've got this," and he said, "I've got one of those. I've got that. No, I've got one of those, and I've got that." And I said, "Oh, how are you getting on with that?" "Oh, I don't know. It's still in the packet." 12 months later, the guy, or 2 years previous, he just had to have the latest gizmo, and that's what a lot of the tool manufacturers rely on. Is the tool collectors?
Brian.
There's nothing.
I haven't got that many tools.
It's not just turners. I mean, you talk about, I don't know anybody plays golf. I don't. But how many golf clubs did you have? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
when all you
Two,
needed was a
three.
stick. You know,
A pool
Probably
cue.
3 sets I had at one time. Crazy.
yeah. It's the same thing. The manufacturers bring out the latest, greatest gizmo. Hey, I'm an Apple person, so I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm surrounded by Apple devices too.
Another SC4.
I'm on a Mac now.
There's an ongoing thing in YouTube land that I am supposed to buy an SK114 Chuck. This is what this is in the chat now.
Oh, okay.
Not buying an SK114 Chuck.
Just to let you know, Brian,
You're not in the cocktails.
cocktail my daughter's just made me.
All too nice.
Good.
Cheers, Terry.
Passion fruit.
I don't know what the cocktail is called. They'll tell me in a minute.
Passion fruit at the top, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks like passion fruit, yeah.
It is, yeah. The cocktail
Slight
shaker's
passion
still
fruit.
going over there at the moment.
See, I'm a Vic Mark Chuck. I've got an SK114. I don't understand why they had to put 3 pinions in it. Why put 3 pinions in it?
Yeah, 2 would have done.
Yeah.
One each side.
Is there 3 pins in it? Oh, I definitely don't want
3
one
pinions.
Yeah.
now. I don't want one now. That's a deal breaker.
One of the best chucks you know, I think.
Well,
Stainless steel as well.
Yeah. Vic Mark, I think, take an awful lot of beating.
Yeah, they're
An
good
awful lot
chucks.
of beating. But anyway. Yeah, I've got the watch, the phone, the iPad,
And we all.
Pro,
Yeah.
the earbuds.
Yeah, so Terry.
Oh, I
I refuse to buy the watch.
Terrible.
I don't wear a watch at all. I never wear a watch, so it would be wasted.
I wear one.
It is really good. I've got a ring security system because my workshop is 100 meters. No, not 100 meters. It's about a 2-minute walk from where I'm sitting to down the garden to the workshop.
Right.
And when couriers deliver stuff, I can say to them, "Hey, just stick it, leave it there. I'll come and get it, or whatever," rather than having to run up here for the doorbell. So it's and that comes up on my watch, which is really cool.
Apparently, this martini apparently is called a porn star martini. So.
Yeah,
my daughter's just made it.
It's not going to suit you then, is it?
Wasted on you then, isn't it?
Yeah, totally wasted. Yeah. Robert from Hodgepodge said he's thinking of making the switch to Vic Mark in a few months' time.
Who's that?
That's Robert from Hodgepodge Woodworks.
Okay. Just get the Easy Wood one.
Yeah, I quite like the look of the Easy Wood chuck with the quick change jaws.
Robert uses a paramedic, doesn't he? He uses a paramedic.
I've heard stories of them exploding.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think Robert uses the paramedic at the moment.
Paramedic chuck?
No, sorry, I thought you were talking about lathes. He's thinking of changing
paramedic
to Vic Mark.
If you look at the VL240, it is a cracking lathe. It really is. I've got one that I do my IRDs on, and because the space I've got is quite small, and it's fabulous because you can swing. What can you swing? Twice 240 mil. So yeah, 480 mil.
480. It's almost an 8.5 of it.
It's heavy, powerful. The beauty of the Vic Mark swivel
I think Steve's finished. Like
the
be right if I was in focus.
Yeah, Douglas Munger says, "Like Terry, do they do a Hobbit drink?" They all call me the Hobbit, Phil, because I'm 5'9", and everybody I know is 6'4" onwards, including you now. So that's another one.
Well, I'm 5'19".
5'19".
Yeah, the Jolly Green Giant.
They still call me the Hobbit. Oh, marvelous.
Yeah, Adam from Isle of Woodturning says the VL240. I've been telling you it's good. He says he bought one.
He's got one.
Yeah. No, they're fabulous, mate. Yeah.
So what did you do tonight, Steve?
I just stood in the background. I made this earlier. I just brought this out.
Did you turn something? Yeah. I think that's what you showed us at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just sanded the colour off of it.
Oh, see. Good job, Steve. Terrible fun now.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing. It's too big and chunky.
There's a question just now, Phil. Somebody wanted to know if you've got a YouTube channel. I know you
No, I haven't.
but you do have some
No.
videos on YouTube. So I've seen them. If people would like to go
Yeah,
in,
but I think that's
in the chat, if they want to go in and just type in full irons, the videos with the relevant
oh, they'll come up. Yeah, they do appear.
symposiums he was on that we filmed it. I put them on there. You can watch them.
Yeah. But there are, I mean, I've got recordings of pre-recorded demos on my website, but it's going to cost you a tenner. But you can watch it for a month afterwards. So, yeah,
Tenner's not much for a good lesson, is it? To be honest.
No.
Tenner's nothing for a good lesson
at all for a good lesson.
You know? Yeah. The when you're choosing, a bit of advice for everybody out there. When you're choosing equipment, look at what professionals use. And I don't mean just your, how can I put this? The people you watch on YouTube. Look at, professional wood turn, people who earn their living from turning, what equipment they're using. And that would be a good indicator of what's good and what's not, because when you're earning a living with something, a bit of kit, you don't want it breaking or whatever. And you're far better buying best you can afford to start with rather than buying cheap and then going up.
Yep. Like they always say, buy once, cry once.
Yeah.
So there's the link to Phil's website again, guys. There's lots of information on there about Phil's stuff, and go and have a look.
Yeah, Woodcut I'm their poster boy. I've known 3 owners of Woodcut, and I bought my first hollowing tool from Rick Taylor back in 1980. It was the Woodcut Deep Dart, DAHT, Deep Adjustable Hollowing Tool. I've still got it. I've got 2. So yeah, I've been using Woodcut since. And the guys like Rick Taylor came over here, stayed at my mum's when I was still living at mum's. A guy called Shane Hewitt was the same. And then, oh God, who was the guy? Can't remember. Can't think of his name. There's a photograph of him on Instagram. Anyway, Peter Hewitt bought it from Ken Port. There you go. And Peter has since died, and his son's taken over. So Dan's taken over. But Shane, there's a photograph of Dan, Ken, and Shane together because they're launching a new tool at the AAW, new bowl saver at the AAW. So they're promoting that. But yeah, so I've been using woodcut tools for 40 years.
Wow.
And I've tried all the others, but it's they're the easiest to sharpen, they're the easiest to use. They don't clog because Simon's tools. It's a learning curve. You can't buy a tool, go and expect it to work magic for you. It's like passing your test and then expecting to win a Formula One race if you jump in a Formula One car. Not going to happen. So
yeah, true.
But advertising will tell you that you can.
Yeah.
Of course, it'll convince you to buy theirs.
Yeah.
So just as an everyday gouge, say a bowl gouge, Phil.
Yeah.
Your recommendations?
Well, my go-to tool is a 5/8 diameter bar, parabolic fluted bowl gouge, with a swept back grind on it, which the wings are no longer than the diameter of the tool.
Okay, yeah.
With a 55-degree bevel on the front end. That's my go-to tool. I use that for just about everything. So yeah, 5/8 parabolic flute, and that's really important because it's nigh on impossible to put a curve on a sorry, let me explain the difference. You got a parabolic flute, which is if you got to put a pin in the wall and a pin in the wall and hung a chain between the two, it's going to create what they call a catenary curve.
Yep.
So it's going to have no straight lines in it. It's a continuous curve. And the width of the flute down there governs how the shape of that curve. Excuse me. Whereas if you've got a straight-sided V gouge with a tiny radius in the bottom, it's impossible to put a curve on that wing. It doesn't work. The point, the front of the gouge will either end up as a bird's beak or underneath, and it's just virtually impossible to do that. So it's a parabolic fluted, not a U shape, although the U shape you can get away with, but a parabolic fluted bowl gouge. And so the first one was the Super Flute by Henry Taylor. Then Crown do a parabolic fluted tool. I think Ashley Isles do. So it's Crown. Vicmark do one that's not available. Well, you can get it from Martin in Germany, but that's expensive. Eye-watering expensive. I've just bought 2 more because they've stopped production. But it's this flute shape that is really important. You can get smaller versions, but my go-to tool is a 5/8 parabolic fluted bowl gouge, and I do all my outside shapes with that. I don't to create my forms. I'll use that tool to do the outside, and then when I'm refinishing, I use that tool again, and then the irons woodcut shear scraper to refine the shape, and then I use a 6mm spindle gouge to reverse when I do the bases of my pieces. So all my pieces have a recess. The bottoms are all recessed. So I reverse turn them and use a 6mm spindle gouge to do that. Put them back between centers basically, and then use a 6mm spindle gouge. So yeah, I can do the whole outside shape of that with a 5/8 bowl gouge and my shear scraper when I come to do the finishing. And they're the 2 tools I use to do the outside. So I do all my roughing out with that tool. And you can go on my site and watch one of the hollowing tools, and it's that bowl gouge. It's the first tool I'll pick up. It's just an extension of me. And so rather than when I'm taking the chuck off, I'll pick up the bowl gouge, 5/8 bowl gouge to take off the chuck spigot, and then I'll use the spindle gouge to get underneath to do the recess. But if I picked up a spindle gouge to take that foot off, I'd get a dig in straight away. And you don't want that because I haven't been using that tool, the spindle gouge. So it would be, I would present it to the wood in the wrong way and get a catch. And I just don't want that. So yeah, 5/8. Sorry, long answer to short question.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, so just a quick question. Sorry. So when you do a hollow form, you have a set process that you go through for every single hollow form you do.
Pretty much, yeah. So I start between centers. Create on the tailstock end. I will create. So I'll turn it to a cylinder using the bowl gouge and steps. I don't pass all the way along because they're irregular shapes. If you're trying to pass all the way along like you would with a roughing gouge, you're going to be pushing the tool at the wood, and it's going to be an uncomfortable journey. So if you do stepped cuts, you've got a lot more control, and you can go from being rough down to a cylinder in one pass each time, and you're practicing that cut. So once I've got that down to a cylinder, I'll then square off the end with the same tool. So I'll turn the tool rest through 90 degrees and have it across the end, and I will stand with my eye line looking down there and the tool at a 45-degree angle over here, and I'm going straight down that end. And then I will mark the diameter for the spigot that I'm going to grip with the chuck, and create a step where that spigot's going to be, and then I will create the bottom half of the shape. So let me just, so it's still, it's between, so tail center's here, so it's turned up cylinder. I'll create that shape,
right.
And then once I've got that, I'll then go in and finish the spigot off. And I've got a dedicated scraper that is the 77-degree angle on it, which is the same shape, same angle as the internal dovetail and big mark jaws. And then I will put it in the chuck, turn it round, and I will finish the shape this way. And then I will drill a depth hole, and then start hollowing. So it's all done with. So that's the process.
Yeah.
And then when I've created that spigot, because these are twice turned, when I create that spigot, it's a 75mm set of jaws, 75mm spigot. When they've dried, same thing, and put it back between centers, and I will return that spigot down to the standard jaws on the Vicmark BM120, which is 52mm. And I'm really, really particular about my spigots. They are, when I put it, I don't put don't have the chuck on the lathe and put the bit of wood into the chuck. The little chuck is on the lathe bed with the jaws open. I'll put it down because let gravity work for me rather than fight it. And I will do the chuck up, back it off, and if this piece spins freely in the jaws when it's almost closed, I've got a perfect spigot. And then when I tighten it up, I turn the key from it spinning to closed in an eighth of a turn. It's not a quarter turn, an eighth of a turn of the key.
That's not a lot.
So it'll go from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. It won't go round to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Because all I'm doing is just gripping that spigot. So it's matching the
diameter of the jaws. Bang on.
Exactly. Yeah. So yes, I've had pieces wobble on me, but I haven't had anything come out of the chuck for a long, long time because I'm creating a perfect spigot.
Perfect.
And a piece that long, which is 10 inches long. I'm not using a center steady on that. That's just because I've got a perfect spigot on there. You get very little movement. Some of the deeper pieces I do use like the big monkey puzzle. I have a big center steady on the front of those. But chucking is, for me, it's my holy grail is to chuck properly. You're not going to get pieces come out
Definitely
all the time. And if I do a bowl, I never do a recess. I never do a recess. It's always a spigot. But if you've got a piece of wood that's really precious and you don't want to waste, put a glue block on it and grip the glue block. Prepare. I never clank a faceplate straight on the end of a cut bit of wood. I always, when I did use faceplates doing the hollow forms, I do the same thing and use 4-inch faceplates, but I would just put a very subtle curve in the end of the piece of wood, so the faceplate was just touching on the outer rim. So you got massive grip. Whereas if you just clank a face, I see so many YouTube things of people just clanking a faceplate on the end of a chainsaw bit of wood, and it's rocking and rolling all over the place, and then they wonder why it comes off. You've got to do the prep to what's the saying? Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Yep, exactly right. That's exactly that.
And it's all right for me to stand up here and preach, but I am passionate about what I do, and I want everybody else to get the same amount out of it that I have. And if one of you guys tonight goes out and creates a perfect spigot, fabulous, amazing, brilliant. But just keep doing it. It's not going to happen overnight, but it just makes life so much safer and simpler if you do that. And I've even Mike Hostler is Picasso as far as I'm concerned in woodturning. He's just an amazing, artistic, talented man. But at the last seminar, when he was the main guest, I gave him a bollocking, the way over how he chucked stuff. I didn't do it in front of everybody else. I just went to the end of the thing and I said, Mike, can I just say something to you about your chucking? And then we had the discussion, and he went, "You're right, Phil," because he said, I just grabbed a bit of wood, I opened the chuck right up and just grabbed a bit of wood, because he has got 30 years experience. He knows he's not going to pull it out the jaws.
Yeah.
So, but I said, but trouble is that a lot of the people here are new to turning. They don't understand. They don't have the ability you have. Yep. And if they're gripping it on the corners of those jaws and have a slight catch, it's just going to come out and whack them in the head. So he said to me, he said, Phil, from now on, I will make the perfect spigot. So it's it's not just, I'm not frightened of telling anybody to make a good spigot.
No. Well, safety is the main thing. For sure.
Good advice.
It's not just the safety aspect. It just makes life so much easier. Yes, safety is paramount, but it just makes life so much easier that you don't have the disasters. It doesn't have to hurt you to be pain. There's nothing worse than well, as the expression is, the 5 Ps. But it should make life a lot more enjoyable. The other thing with, like you said, that gouge, when I'm teaching, everybody wants to push the gouge at the wood. And the more relaxed you are, the easier it is to turn. It's difficult when you first start because you want to this thing is bumping and bouncing and you want to hang on for grim death. But it just makes it more uncomfortable. Whereas if you are letting the wood come to the tool rather than pushing the tool at the wood, and let the tool cut the wood rather than try and drag it off, it's a lot more pleasurable experience. But it is tough to do. I mean, I have had 400 odd people that I taught in Germany, trying to get them to not push at the tool. There's fireworks going off here. The dogs aren't keen. You shut the door. So yeah, there's an awful lot to it. Is the crown double-ended bomb parabolic? I think so. But if you just think of, just as an exercise, get a couple of nails and a bit of chain and just hang it between two nails, you'll see what a parabolic curve is. The double-ended one, but certainly there others are. Their new cryo one is, please feel free to preach so us lesser skilled people can learn. Once leave your work on the chuck, and then what's that? One thing also once to leave your work on the chuck and then take it off. Yeah. When I'm looking at shapes, I don't take it out of the chuck. I take the chuck off with the piece in it and stand it up, because you're looking at a piece. When you're looking at a piece in that orientation, sometimes it can look really good, and you work away and you finish it, and then you take it off and stand it up, and it just doesn't work stood up. So if I'm trying to check a shape, I'll take the chuck off with the piece in it, stand it up, and go away and have a look to the form. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you can change it. The other thing to do is turn it upside down. If a piece works, both ways up. So there, that way and that way, you've got a good form. It's not going to work with this piece of you. I mean, it kind of does because it's a hot air balloon, but it's and that I just have very, very simple forms, but they are the most difficult to achieve, because when you start off, your first pieces, you've got to your bowl is square, your first bowl is square, because one, you don't want to waste any wood, and two, it's just easier to do, just to knock the edges off. But it's a lot more difficult. But it looks like a dog bowl, you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot more difficult to do a beautiful curve on a bowl, because it takes a lot of practice to be able to move that tool fluidly. I mean, like Glenn Lucas, he does about 2,500 bowls a year. So he's very practiced at creating that form. So yeah, but that's one thing. Headlights on Terry's car will be parabolic.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. I did have an Austin 7 at one point,
Right.
actually, when I was younger.
Yeah, probably.
It is all about form, yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, I still haven't turned that piece of burl you said I'm not good enough to turn yet. Smiley. Well, yeah. Laugh.
You'll get there, though, Adam. Keep practicing.
Yeah, I liken wood turning to ceramics, to pottery. The trouble is for us is that we have a beautiful material to work with, whereas potters just it's mud, you know, it's dirt and water, basically. But it's what they do with that mud that they make a thing of beauty out of. Whereas we have the difficulty of having really, really spectacular wood. But one thing I would say on that is, do not let the wood dictate the shape to you. You dictate the shape to the wood, because if you let the wood talk to you, I've never heard a piece talk to me yet, but if you let it dictate the shape, you'll end up with a bum shape. It's, I don't want to lose that little bit of burr. No, it's just treat it like a piece of clay. Paint it black or white in your mind when you're turning it, and just see the form, proportion and form, and then you'll have a piece that will be, or should have a piece that will be good. Because in 200 years' time, when the beauty has bleached out of that piece of wood, your piece of brilliant hue has turned a dirty brown color, and it's a pretty ordinary form. You got an ordinary form. You no longer have a piece of. When people say to me, "Oh, what a beautiful piece of wood," I go, "Yeah, okay." If people say, "I love your forms," I go, "Thank you very much." That's the difference. So, again, preaching, try not to let the wood talk to you. I hear people say, "Oh, I let the wood dictate the shape," or "the wood tells me what shape it wants to be." Yeah, okay. Most of your inspiration comes from ceramics and glass pieces. Yeah, when I was on the road, I used to go to Venice. We used to go to Venice. Pretty much every trip we did went through Venice, and I used to go to into the glass works, but I didn't go to the tourist side. I'd go to where the masterpieces were. There were special air-conditioned rooms that was just mind-blowing stuff in there, to get ideas and stuff for forms and that sort of thing. If you, how many of you will know Benoit Averly, who started out as a turner and is now a wood sculptor? He will go off somewhere, and he's always got a camera in his pocket. Well, most of us have now, because we've got phones. And he will just take photographs of all sorts of different stuff, just as inspiration for his forms and for his texturing on his sculptures. Nick Agar is the same. You follow him on Instagram or Facebook. He's always posting pictures of plants and all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff, which is his inspiration for decoration. But these people have been, who was a sculptor? Benoit. He's been at it, but he's been sculpting for 20 years. He's been turning for 25 years. Nick's been turning the same length of time as I have. Now I'm 30 years. The turning is just it's a means of getting to where we want to be with form and stuff. It's just the mechanics of it. You know, we have the advantage of we're doing it all day, every day, pretty much. I mean, if I don't turn for a week, I get rusty. I struggle with a form. Where these urns I do, I've got, I've just had a ton and a half of burr ash that I've had to process, and so I spent a week just roughing out pieces. So it's just, you know, piece after piece after piece, just creating forms. The problem is just trying to create different forms, so they're not all the same. My favourite shape is that's kind of my signature shape now. That shape, but it's but all it is. So this piece here is kind of that shape reversed. It's not a very good example, but almost, yeah. There's another piece. I don't just do bowls. So I don't just do hollow forms. I do bowls as well. But that's a what I call a square natural edge bowl with a slice of crotch. But so often, just recently I've seen a load of this sort of thing on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and people have to put a bowl. You know, there's a bowl in that square piece. Where why not make it look organic? You know, so it looks more vacuum formed than turned. And that the foot that foot that it stands on is how I gripped it on the chuck. That's about 1.5 millimeters.
I was just going to say it's about a mil.
Where's the picture there? Yeah, that's what I gripped it on. And this was wet, so this is a piece of Robinia or Acacia, black locust, and it was a bit damp, and you can see the mark there where the jaws have been touching, and that's the gap. There is the gap between each jaw. So, and that's a perfect fit on there. But that's, you know, so that is showing off the wood. But again, you know, sort of a bit trickier to do. But I find that far more aesthetically pleasing than if it had
just a round
bowl in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Different class.
So it's 10 o'clock.
Different class.
Yeah. You finished turning, Steve, by the way? Nobody's talking.
Yeah, no, I'm just listening to Phil.
Oh.
I could listen to Phil all night.
We're all engrossed with Phil.
Yeah.
So
well, there you go. That's what I did. There you go. Never mind.
Yeah,
brilliant, mate.
Murano glass is mind blowing. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I always say with these special guest airworms, I could listen to you guys go on all night because you've got so much knowledge, you've got so much experience, so much life experience for the you know, something that most of us in the chat use as a hobby. You mean you guys live in you guys are living a dream.
They have to do it for real as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You have your off days, but and some days, you know, spoons I do struggle with now. You know, getting all of the 50 spoons, think, oh god, you know. But then I think the first 15 or 20 are tough, hard to do, and you just get into the flow, and your mind wanders off doing something else, you know. So yeah. I've got a piece of walnut crotch I'm going to try that with. Yeah. One word of advice on that: don't make it too deep. This piece is only from there to the base is about 60 mil. So don't make your slice too big, too deep, because it's too difficult to unless it's a big square. This is. Hang on, tape measure here. Oh, my earbuds are just about to die on me. Yeah. So that corner to corner is 400 mil. There to there is 400 mil.
20 inches.
And the other way,
60.
So you want that in inches?
That's
16. America.
16
yeah,
inches.
16 inches. I've got one that does both.
My brain does both.
So 12. Blimey, you're a better man than me.
He's old though.
So 12 by 16. But depth-wise, it is.
I used to sell lawnmowers, 400 mil, 16-inch cut.
2 3/4 inches tall.
Yeah.
So you're not actually
using.
So you're not actually taking that much out the middle then?
No.
No, that's what you said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just a shallow depression rather than a bowl.
Even thickness, the wall thickness is the same all the way through. Yeah. I may be a little.
Douglas Mungham has commented. He says the education is fantastic tonight. I have to agree.
Thank you very much.
And Grandpa Doug's just joined us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Grandpa.
You're a bit late.
He's perhaps just got home from work in America.
Yeah, that's right.
I did see Dr. Bob's in as well.
This is really bizarre because I'm seeing myself talking about that bowl now. YouTube.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, you shouldn't have that on actually. You should
What I normally do is pop out the chat and put it over that picture so they can't see
pop
it.
the YouTube chat out, but
Yeah.
leave and close YouTube.
Thank you, David. Dave. OT.
Dave Odie, yeah. It's been a pleasure.
Cornish.
Has been a pleasure.
Lives in Cornwall.
He's another Cornwallian. Is that what you call them? Cornwallians?
Cornwallis.
What? You're very welcome, Wood Dude.
Stephen is a bit of an artist as well, I have to say. His stuff is pretty well. Super to look at.
You're breaking up.
He's good at form. Yeah, it's just my microphone that does that.
That's his
Douglas wants to know where
that's
you
his
live.
carrier pigeon that's getting tired.
Douglas wants to know where you live.
Where I live, Warwickshire.
Don't tell him, Pike.
Don't tell him it's Warwickshire, don't tell him.
Warwickshire. It's a big county. I'm near Stratford-on-Avon,
Yeah.
but that's still a big area.
Yeah. You just narrowed it down by about 100 square miles, but you know.
Mm.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. Not far from where this stuff's brewed.
Now you've given it away.
Yeah.
The brewery's next door.
Yeah, just over the fence.
It's really nice.
Yeah. That was an exceptionally good evening, I have to say.
It has.
I
It has
really
been
enjoyed
really,
it.
really
Yeah.
good.
Great.
Loads of information.
Great stuff.
I've got a page full.
And there's going to be a lot of woodcut tools sold next week.
Oh, you got to buy the iron shear scraper. That's a must-have.
Is it?
It's I said about the RS200 multi-tip shear scraper back in '94 that I sold 200 of. It's kind of a derivation of that because to refine my outside shapes, I use this scraper. But mine is a triangular cutter with the wings of each side is 40 mil long. Excuse me. But it's got a half a mil radius on it. So if you were to line corner to corner, you'd have
half a mil or
exactly.
40.
Thank you.
40 mils.
And it is. I think this 8 mil thick. The cutters. And I don't put it on the grinder. I use a diamond hone to flat off the top, and then up the edge, I'll run a burr up with a diamond file. Because if it's straight off the grinder, it's too aggressive, and that's how I refine my shapes with that at a 45-degree angle, and I can run round the forms. But the trick bit with mine is that rather than having to use an Allen key every time I want to change the angle, because to do say that shape, because I'm traveling from here or from there, I'm traveling in that direction, and then there I'm traveling that direction, and I need a different angle here than I do here with on the tip. So what I've done is I put a spring washer under the cap head screw, and so you tighten the screw up so it doesn't move freely, but you can just alter it that little bit. And if you need to lock it down, then you grab your Allen key and tighten it up. and yeah, it's been a real success. But it's the only tool with it's the only signature tool I have. I don't have a range of gouges or whatever, because a gouge is a gouge is a gouge, to an extent. Just because it's got somebody's name on it doesn't make any difference to. But yeah, my scraper's worth getting if you want to do hollow forms and create good forms. And it doesn't work on the inside of things. It's not designed to do. I don't have a spare hollowing jig. No, sorry, Douglas. It's not for doing the inside of bowls. It's just for outside forms, exterior shapes.
Okay.
I mean, even you've got to be. I can't remember if I did use it on these. I don't think I do. Or maybe on something that's very shallow, but not. It's not designed to do the insides of things. It's just to refining the outside shapes. But it works really well. But you've got to keep honing it. You've got to keep honing it pretty regularly, because I'm only using 25 micron diamond, so that little burr is not going to last very long.
No.
But it really on good woods it cuts down. So that this piece of ash, it really cuts down the amount of sanding you have to do, because you're getting a finish off the tool that is just amazing. Yeah. We haven't covered sanding, have we?
Well,
Next time.
Yeah.
We'll have to have you back on, Phil.
Next time.
Well, I'll tell you back for finishing next time, finishing work.
Can I use the iron shear scraper blade on my artistry KT handle? You don't have to get the blade. You just grind one of the straight edges of the big scraper, so it's got that half a mil radius on it, with about the bevel angle is about 75 degrees, so it's fairly not square. It's just got a bit of a bevel on it. The cutter on mine is thicker than the Sorby one, just to make it easier to get that flat on the edge and be able to go diagonally up the face. So I'm sliding it along the edge, not trying to go up and down. So it's just pushing it up and along to create a little burr on the edge that gives you a really good finish off the tool. John Jordan's shear scraper, I have, but his is double-ended and it's not as versatile as mine, because you struggle to get in. John's is just, I think it's 45-degree angle. His shapes, it works for him, and his shapes. Mine's a bit more versatile because you can change the angle, the presentation angle. Cool. Grandfather was a master craftsman in glass blowing from Bulgaria.
Wow.
Fabulous.
That's another craft on its own, isn't it?
Good one, mate. Good on you, Adam.
They'll be able to eat next week now, Adam.
There's about 30p royalty for me.
Yeah, there you go. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, Phil, if you did to come back at some point to give us a thing on finishing. Because it doesn't matter how things are turned, once they're finished properly, that's what counts.
The good finishing is simple. Start with sharp tools. When you make your last cut, sharpen your gouge. So when I'm doing the outside forms of these, the last cut I make, I'll freshly sharpen the gouge to that final cut, and then my shear scraper makes the finish as good as I can get. I mean, to sand a piece that big will take me about under 5 minutes.
Oh.
Sand. And I use inertia sanders, so self-propelled sanders. The reason being is that when you're sanding, when you present it right, they're sanding along the grain because of the rotation.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're power sanding, you can be sanding at 90 degrees to the grain. And that's, if you haven't got much tear out, it's not going to take long to get your surface really good. And don't be frightened. I mean, I did have some tear out in some ripple ash because the grain is doing that.
Yeah.
And I hit it with some 80 grit, got rid of it. I normally go 120 through to 400 or 600. So in that instance, it was 80, 120, 180, 240, 320, 400, 600. And a bit of worn 240 is not the equivalent to 400.
No,
No.
yeah, we're
No, definitely not. No,
yeah, throw it
Throw it
away,
away.
throw it away. Yeah, exactly.
it's not a sharp tool any longer.
No.
Throw it away.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, you see so many people reusing sandpaper over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I buy Simon's discs. So I use his 30 mil, his 50, and his 100 mil discs. The 100 mil go on his big arbors. I use angle drills if I'm sanding, if I'm power sanding.
Yep.
And the self-propelled sanders, they're 50 mil, and then to sand the bases. So that one's not done, but when I sand in here, I use the 30 mil arbors in the angle drill to sand those, so they come up, looking like that.
We used to
Spot on.
hope inertia sanders.
Yep. I use that too.
Yeah.
Good tool.
Simon, this is the Vicmite one I use because you're going to go twist the handle to change the angle
Right.
of the head. Whereas his, you've got to get a spanner, I think.
Yeah. You have to use an Allen.
Key.
You have to use an Allen key
And
in the
you
side.
don't. If you've got to pick up another tool, you don't.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true. You don't.
I suppose you could change.
You
You could change that to a thumb screw, I suppose,
Yeah.
because it hasn't got to be really tight, has it?
No. I am so chuffed with that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Laser
engraving. Yeah.
I started.
It's good, isn't it?
I started laser engraving the bottom of my pieces a couple of years ago because it came so much.
Yeah.
You mean with a Brandon iron, you either got it too hot, too cold, and once you've put it on, once you can't get it back on in the same place. With a laser, once your design's there, it's exactly the same every single time.
Yeah, I've never used a brand. I've always signed pieces with a pyro pen.
Yeah.
In fact, yeah, that's and I'm struggling to read it. It's there's, you can see the difference is huge.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just do mine like that.
It's amazing what you can do with a laser.
That's how
Yeah.
I do mine, just like that.
I only see a little bit of that picture.
Oh, can you? Let me get it the right way. Handcrafted.
Move it to your left.
My left.
Other left. There you go. Okay. Yeah.
So I just do that in the bottom of mine.
So I've always put the timber species, the date, and I put month and year.
Yeah.
On pieces.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's just a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a couple of questions there. Are you going to the AWGB seminar this year?
Haven't decided.
Phil, do you use Yorkshire grit?
No.
No. Steve, have you thought about printing Yorkshire grit product? No, I won't be, Douglas. No, I won't be printing them. Every Yorkshire grit tin comes with a product saver. It's called the lid. Just put it back on there when you finish getting out of the tin.
Exactly.
It's right though, isn't it?
It's exactly right. Don't drop it in the shavings.
Yeah, don't take your bit out. Put the lid back on it.
Deal.
No more shavings in the Yorkshire grit.
No, I use, to get the high gloss, I use Autoglim
All right, yeah.
car polish.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's anti-static as well, isn't it? So it's even better.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about the Autoglim is if you have got colouring on it, the Autoglim's got a UV protector in it, so it will help the colours hold their colour longer, so they don't fall.
Yeah. What in the last year I've discovered a hard wax oil that's 12 times UV inhibited.
Wow.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Osmo do a UV inhibited hard wax oil, but it takes about a week to go off. Is there any problem with it?
Right. Okay.
I picked up the wrong can the other day, or the right can. Yeah, not the can I wanted. And put it on and wiped it off, and went back in next day to pick it up, put another coat on, and went, why is this sticky? Oh God.
Put it to one
Yeah.
side.
it works. We've got some chestnut boarding on the front of the house that I put that on it, and it hasn't changed. It was 3 years ago. It's not in direct sunlight, but it hasn't faded at all.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff.
Osmo we use Osmo oil on our worktops, solid wood worktops when we fit kitchens.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is good stuff.
Yeah. And with that UV stuff, I will put a coat of that on first, let it dry, and then I'll spray gloss over the top, spray the lacquer over the top of it.
Don't get any problems with interaction? They don't interact?
I haven't yet. No.
It's worth knowing.
No. So no, I've been lucky, haven't yet. Okay.
Osmo, yeah, if you go on it, I buy all my auto glim stuff off of eBay because it is the Valatin quality, not the retail shop quality. Because I'm a big auto glim freak, so everything I've got for the cars is auto glim. Okay. And if you go on places like eBay, you can buy the proper Valatin stuff, which they're like high polished resin. Is that what you use? The resin, high gloss resin? Yeah, it's a more of a richer formula than what you buy at like Halfords or wherever. But you have to buy it in either 5 litre or 5 gallon drum. Gallon or 5 gallon drums. You can't buy like a little tiny 500 milliliter bottle.
Oh, I've got a litre and a half one. Litre?
Yeah, that'll be normally a litre from a retail shop.
Oh, right. I inherited it. I didn't buy it. One of our tenants left it. So
be one like this.
Go left again. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a litre bottle.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff. It's good stuff. I swear by Autoglim. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Right then, guys.
I used to burnish stuff. I was using chestnut burnishing cream, and then I would use another one that came with was a car polish. That I used to say, well, use this stuff that's 10 quid a bottle for chestnut, and then this stuff which is blue. I said, and didn't show the label. I said, this stuff's 45 grand a bottle. People go, what?
45 grand a bottle.
Yeah, you do get a free Mercedes SLK with it. And it was paint protect your paint. What do they call it? Paint seal.
Right. Yeah.
And that did the same thing. But yeah, that was just my.
It's basically just like a real fine Tika, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah.
I remember watching when I went to the Chestnut weekend in Springfields. When the first one they ever had in you was there demoing. That's when I saw you spray it with matte lacquer, and then you got it polished up with the burnishing cream.
Yeah. Yeah. But Terry's stuff is a bit gritty, whereas you put it between your fingers, you can feel the grit in it. Whereas the super resin polish and the Mercedes stuff, you can't.
Yeah.
So that's because I do it. Well, you saw me doing it on the lathe.
Yeah.
Long bit of cloth and just to hold it against it. So yeah.
Just soak the lathe. Well, I see you do that with a soaked cloth. So do you just leave that cloth soaked and you just keep it in a bag to keep it moist, or?
No, I don't keep it in a bag. I use the same cloth, but I have to it goes a bit like a board.
Yeah.
So when you put
yeah.
So
I suppose once you put some more stuff on it and just work it, and that breaks down and goes a bit soft again.
Yeah. Hodgepodge, he's not paying me at all. You're lucky my wife is away. She's in Spain,
It's all free, Robert.
Phil is good enough to give his time free to us. To you lot. He's actually good enough to give his time to you lot.
Yep.
So what he's really saying is if he was not here, he'd be bored sat there in the house all on his own. That's what he's really saying.
Watching YouTube
I'd
channels,
be in the workshop.
You've been in
You
the
know,
workshop
works.
turning something, probably.
That's the
earning money.
Yeah,
the good and the good and bad of having a workshop at home. So, but yeah, I've just got a lot of work to do to get stuff ready for this trade show next weekend.
Well, best of luck with it, mate.
And I'm also
Good luck with that.
building a new website for it as well. So
nice.
Yeah, it's the National Funeral Exhibition.
National Funeral
That's
Exhibition.
a fine trade, isn't it?
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
Somebody had to say it.
That's one trade you're never going to run out of work for, though, for sure.
That's true.
And it's been really good to me because there's nobody producing urns like mine that.
You could do that.
This will be the fourth time I've done it, and it's really good to me. First time I did it, people just walk in the corner and go, "Wow, great reaction! Yeah, it's we like that. Yeah." So
when you do urns, do people have coloured ones, or are they just always natural wood?
Yeah, no, you'd be surprised what requests I get, and I sell quite a few coloured urns.
Really?
Because I had a lady contact me a couple of years ago now. She bought a piece through my Etsy store, which I think was really brave. And she said it was far more beautiful than it appeared in the photographs.
Yep.
But I am so pleased that basically her husband had died and she wanted him to be with her, but she had this piece on the coffee table in the lounge room, and it was only special people knew what it was. To everybody else, it was just a piece of art.
Oh yeah.
And I get that quite a lot.
Nice.
And that's the whole thing. And I did a art in action. The last one I did had a couple come along and said, "Oh, we're looking for a 50th wedding anniversary present for ourselves. We really like that piece that's up on the top shelf." So I got it down. It was a piece of brown oak that had got black staining in it from nails and stuff, and so I explained the whole thing, why it worked, because it was burr as well. It was a really spectacular piece, and I explained all the wood and all that sort of stuff, and then I took the lid off and they unscrewed the lid and they went, "Wow, it's got a lid. What do people put in them?" And I went, "Well, people put ashes in them." And they went, And I thought,
would you put it on people?
I've buggered this sale up. And just
dead people.
Spur of the moment, I said, "Well, for me, it's a massive honour that people want to keep the ashes of their loved one, a piece of my artwork."
Yeah, exactly.
And they went, "That's really nice." And they had to go away to the pay booth to pay for it, and I packed it up. And they came back, and as he walked away, he said over his shoulder, "I'll do my damnedest to stay out of that for as long as I possibly can."
Yeah, definitely.
But they just saw it as a piece of artwork, you know.
Which it is. It is a piece of artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be really heartwarming, and other times really, really heart wrenching.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I had a couple come. A guy had been on a course with me 4 years beforehand, and anyway, they came and said they wanted an urn, and they were very specific about what they wanted, and they wanted an oval urn. And anyway, I got some eucalyptus that I knew moved crazily, and got what they wanted. And then they told me the story. It was for their 26-year-old daughter who'd emigrated to Australia with her boyfriend. He'd been out partying with his mates. Come on his way home, he sat down on the gutter. Lived in suburban Sydney, I think it was, and he got wiped out by a car.
Oh, blimey, come
on. And she went to the hospital. He wasn't killed outright, but he went to the hospital, and she was so distraught that she walked out of the hospital and committed suicide.
Wow.
and that was a very shortened version of it, but that was a real tough one. I'm glad they told me before I'd made it. They knew what they were doing, but that was a really tough one. But a lot of the time it's just, the comments I get are just really, really, really nice from people, because what you can buy, they look like what they are. It looks like granny on the mantelpiece.
Yeah.
So there is some nice stuff out there, but so it's very good for me. Very good for me.
But yours has got heart and soul in it. You mean you've got every piece you make is individual in it. It's not mass produced, and it's just that every single piece is different.
Yeah, yeah. And part of the reason for the laser is that I can now personalize them as well.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another little extra touch in it.
Yeah, because you can do photographs with this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I've only had it 2 days, so
plenty of playing then. Lots of learning to do.
Yeah.
They're very versatile. Very, very versatile.
Yeah. The scary thing is that you can walk around with it, aren't you? You get a battery pack and you walk around and. What's it like on car paint?
I don't know. I've never been able to get my car underneath it.
the laser pecker, it's got a handle on top. You can
put it wherever.
There's a guy, the guy who recommended it to me knows somebody who works in a warehouse, and they go around laser etching cardboard boxes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if someone runs into you, you can get your pecker and go, "I told you not to hit me."
Yeah. And you got to wonder how many people have gone, I wonder how strong that is, and stick their finger on it.
Oh yeah, that's not fingerable, isn't it? There are stupid people out there.
Self tattoo artists.
Yeah. Bit like the fractal burning.
Oh yeah.
I've just had another email from the AAW going, "Do not do that."
Yeah, there's a lot of people trying it.
Was 30 people died doing it?
Wow.
They're saying.
Yeah, but are they the idiots who's tried to make one out of a microwave? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're the idiots. If you mean, I know there are people in America who's bought Pacific kits, aren't there, that are made for that purpose. But when you're putting high voltage for a piece of wet timber, common sense tells you water and electricity don't go together anyway.
No.
That's not one of the problems. So one of the problems is the arc will jump 10, 12 feet.
Yeah.
Quickest path to Earth, and if you're in the way of it.
Yeah. Dr. Bob, I've turned over 20 flower pot shaped vases since 2001. Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
You got one the left for a dog.
So do I, Doug. So do I. No, it's aimed at the trade. It'd be good if it did sell out, because I've got about 250 pieces roughed out in the workshop.
Be awesome. You'll never see Phil again. You never see Phil again.
It's my pension. Yeah. So.
Valerie Henshaw's just
Hi, Valerie. Right, I think we're going to knock it on the head then. I think we've burnt you out, Phil.
Are
you all right to carry on, or if there's questions?
I can't tell you, Valerie, about fractal burning. I just do it. Yeah.
No.
Don't do it.
I like my life too much. Yep. Too much to do with the rest of it to even contemplate playing with that stuff.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't touch it either.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Gordon.
So, guys, is there any more questions before we knock it on the head for Phil?
Yes, we agreed. Douglas, Phil has to come back. He will, I'm sure.
What are you reading?
When his wife goes on holiday again.
How come yours are appearing before they do for me?
I'm using a Mac. Are you using a Mac?
I'm on a Mac, yeah.
Just
depends
on your internet.
Not, it just depends on the internet. Yeah, it depends on the speed of your internet. And how many servers got to get through to get to you.
What did he say?
5 gigabyte a second, this internet.
What did he say?
What did he say?
That's Brian.
That's my
internet. Again. You're all broken up. I told you Brian's only got 9 gigabyte or 9 megabyte of internet download and upload, whereas this one has got a 5 megabyte up download and
The burner,
gigabyte
the burner looks
download.
nice, but it's not worth killing yourself for. Yeah, I totally agree, Dave. Question for you, Phil. What is the deepest you've ever turned?
22 inches.
That's a long way in.
It is a long
It
way.
is
It's a long
through a
way.
4-inch opening.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a long way in.
Because what is it?
Yeah.
For every inch over 3 inches
Oh.
behind or 4 inches behind?
4
Yeah.
inches.
Behind it.
Well, that's if you do it freehand. But I did it with the rig I've got. Yeah, and it was 22 inches deep.
Wow.
So it was a big tube I had to do for another wood sculptor. It was quite funny. The guy booked on a course. He said, "I want to make these," and I went, "What?" I said, "I'm going to struggle to make them," because he wanted tubes that were like 2, 3, and 4 inch diameter, but was it starting at a foot deep? Then you go sort of 12, 14, 16, 18 inches deep, but 4 inches diameter. We did them, I did them, but it was interesting.
At that sort of size diameter, do you struggle getting all the shavings out, or do you have to keep stopping, cleaning it all out? And
Something just pull them out. Yeah.
Break it out.
Yeah.
Break it all out with a back scratcher normally.
For special, I'll do specials, Adam.
Bring your bit of burr. Bring your bit of burr, Adam.
Yeah.
Dr. Bob wants to know if you're coming back next month. When will the 4 of you be back? Next month? Question mark.
Well, I don't know if Phil will be back next month, but
Next year maybe.
we don't.
I hope I'm going to be really busy.
Yeah, Phil's.
Let's hope.
We have to.
Yep.
Thing is, when I ask the guests to come in, I always try and work around them, because I know, obviously, this is Phil's living. Woodturning is Phil's living, and obviously work comes first. I know that, because obviously being a builder, you need to work when you need to work. So I always give the guys several dates, and it's always down on whatever date is available for them. So if Phil wants to come back, then we will sort a time out, but it won't be in the next month. Let's put it that way, because obviously, as you know, Phil's really busy.
But all we got to do is ask Phil's wife when she's on holiday again.
That's it. We'll crack it.
Yeah. Or it'll be from the workshop.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to say it's been a really good evening.
It has.
Thank you so much, Phil, for
Yeah, it's
coming
been,
on.
Yeah.
it's been
Thanks,
awesome.
Hey.
It's been awesome.
I've
Appreciate
hated it.
No, tell
Oh
them.
well, don't come back then.
You went up here.
That's fine. Don't come back then.
Yeah. It's I just said earlier, it's my passion, and if I can pass on a small amount, if somebody's absorbed a small amount of what I've said about techniques, great. But it's just it is a fantastic occupation to have, or a hobby to have. The beauty and the beast of it is that it's instant. The trouble is that we want everything to happen. The first time you put a gouge to a piece of wood and you change the shape of it in seconds, no matter how rough it is or how good it is, that's addictive.
Yep.
But the problem is you want everything to happen at that speed all the time, and it doesn't.
All the time.
It's very addictive as well.
Yeah. So, Susie, are you actually in Switzerland?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I remember I didn't touch any proper gouges for the first year of my turning career. I was on carbides all the time, because I didn't use a gouge. Every time I used a gouge, it used to bite me. Well, not bite me personally, but
Been a bite the wood. Scared you.
It did scare me.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Switzerland are you, Susie?
Dr. Bob says it was nice to see and hear from a real legend of our time.
Lucerne.
Lucerne. That was the coach park I was in that I picked up those silver birch burrs.
Hey, get on.
A long time ago. So, when did I pull the pin? 94. So would have been 93. Yeah.
Right, I think we'll
Right.
we'll kill it.
Okay.
So a massive.
We've still got 41 people watching, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
It's crazy.
So
There's some very sad people out there.
yeah, they got nothing better to do.
There's very sad anoraks.
Go and get a real life. So a massive thank you, Phil, for coming and joining us. I really have
Barry
appreciated
laughed
that,
right
and
off, there you go.
I hope we've not been too daunting on you. So
No,
Yeah.
I must admit I was totally unsure of what was going to happen, and then when you were going to be turning something, and I'm like, well, how the hell is that going to work? But hey, it worked.
Yep.
Keep practicing.
thanks, Phil. Thanks for that.
Don't do a finial like that anymore. Don't do another.
Keep practicing your finials.
Yeah, I don't.
I was going to say.
Well, this was the second one I ever made, which is
Finials
obviously
need
a bit.
of work.
This
Yeah.
was the second one I ever made, which is better than that one. It's just too chunky. But
Yeah,
it is,
yeah.
you know.
They're very tricky things to get right. They're very tricky things to get right. You know, why do you think most of my lids look like that?
Yeah.
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 Perfect. Perfect.
Right then.
So yeah, I only do. Well, I say only finials are only a lot of the time just on natural edge stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can't get your fingers into the smooth ones.
Which makes sense.
But yeah.
Which makes sense. Right, so we're going to go. Right, massive thank you
Right,
to
Doug.
each and every one of you guys
Okay.
for sticking with us. Hope we've not. Well, I know we've not bored you for sure because there's been loads of really good questions.
Definitely
And like I said earlier,
Yeah.
a massive thank you to Phil for sharing his knowledge. And I'm sure, like Phil says, if he hopes that one person goes over a little information. Well, I know personally for me, I have learned so much tonight by just listening to you, Phil. So thank you very much on my behalf, and I'm sure
Me too.
everybody else in the chat
Absolutely.
feels exactly the same way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
No, it's
Yeah,
been
yeah.
good.
So,
Cool.
hang around for a minute, Phil, because we're going to close the live and then we'll say goodbye afterwards. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So, I will be back on Sunday lunchtime with my lovely wife. Don't forget it's hashtag week this week, so you'll find out what the hashtag is. So you guys have got something to play with in the workshop for the next couple of weeks. And other than that, have a great weekend. Enjoy your, if you're in the UK, enjoy your bank holiday. So it's good night from me. Say good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thanks
Take
for
care,
coming in.
guys. Take care.
See you.
Nice to see you
Bye.
all.
See you all on Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's all, folks.